Oh, dear listener, prepare to embark on a journey that will whisk you away to a realm where time stands still, yet whispers secrets of the past. Nestle into your bed, or perhaps sink into your favorite chair, for tonight we delve into the shadowy corridors of history where the macabre dances with the mundane. Can you feel the chill of anticipation as we prepare to explore the enigmatic figure of the plague doctor? Imagine, if you will, a world not so different from our own, yet cloaked in an eerie familiarity. This is not just a tale to tickle your curiosity, but a voyage meant to soothe, educate, and gently guide you towards a restful slumber. As we set the stage, let's conjure up a vision of a typical 14th century European town. Envision the narrow winding streets, each bend and turn a gateway to another story, another life. Here, amidst the cobblestones and thatched roofs, an ominous figure emerges, a silhouette that both terrifies and fascinates. Clad in black from head to toe, with a long beak-like mask, a wide-brimmed hat, and a staff in hand, the plague doctor steps into the scene, a symbol of humanity's relentless struggle against the invisible scourges of disease. But who were these masked men? What was their daily existence like as they navigated through the plague-ridden alleys? What bizarre theories did they entertain, and what desperate treatments did they administer? How did their patients perceive them, these harbingers of hope or despair? And what enduring lessons do they impart to us now, as we too face our own spectral adversaries? Tonight, as the shadows lengthen and the candlelight flickers, let us ponder these questions together. Let the gentle cadence of this narrative lull you into a reflective state where history's echoes resonate with the heartbeats of the present. As you wander through the narrow, twisting streets, your gaze catches on the quaint yet precarious wood-frame houses. Their upper floors jut out daringly, overhanging the bustling paths below, where life teems with an intensity that borders on chaos. The air, dense and almost palpable, carries a pungent medley of odors, human and animal waste, the decay of food, and the smoky tendrils from countless hearth fires. In the bustling heart of the marketplace, the cacophony is almost tangible. Hawkers with voices loud and animated vie for attention over their wares, baskets brimming with freshly baked bread, barrels of frothy ale, and bolts of rough-spun cloth. Nearby, the rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer competes with the gruesome scraping sounds of a tanner, his hands immersed in a vat of urine, while a chandler meticulously crafts candles, dipping wicks into pools of tallow. The solemn toll of church bells marks the passage of time as black-robed monks glide by, their faces set towards prayer. Death and disease, ever present, weave through the fabric of daily life. Infections, accidents, the gnawing hunger of malnutrition, and the harrowing complications of childbirth ensure that the earth here drinks deeply of human sorrow. The people, hardened by loss, accept suffering as an inescapable companion, yet they remain blissfully unaware of the looming cataclysm that will soon engulf their world. The year is 1347, and the Black Death, like a dark, relentless tide, approaches from the east. It travels on the vessels of merchants and the boots of marauders, infiltrating through trade routes and caravan trails, clinging to the hooves of horses and the hems of travelers' cloaks. From the sun-kissed shores of Italy and France, it advances an unstoppable force, sweeping across the continent in wave after relentless wave. Regions fall like dominoes. In Siena, 80,000 souls perish in a mere 6 months. Florence, once vibrant, loses 60% of its population. England and Wales see half their inhabitants succumb to the plague. The death toll mounts an unimaginable 200 million across Europe, Asia, and Africa. The scars left behind are not just on the land, but etched deep into the psyche of a generation. Oh, the horror, the unfathomable toll. What does it mean for humanity when death becomes the very air they breathe? In the shadow of centuries, medieval medicine stands as a testament to human ingenuity and simultaneously its tragic limitations. Oh, how the grand universities and their learned scholars have grappled with this insidious foe, yet they are woefully outmatched. Their craft, an ancient inheritance from the Greeks and Romans, clings to the doctrine of balancing the four humors: blood phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Illness, they assert, springs from the disarray of these essential fluids. But what remedy can possibly prevail when the very breath we draw is tainted, when miasmas seep insidiously into our pores, poisoning our lungs with every gasp? At first, the traditional healers, monks, and medicine men deploy their familiar arsenal. They administer purifying elixirs, enact bloodletting, induce vomiting, apply cupping, and perform scarification. Alas, when these fail, as they inevitably do, desperation breeds more radical interventions. Patients are bled to the brink of unconsciousness, leeches by the hundreds latch onto their skin, poultices of onion and vinegar are applied, and arsenic with mercury are smeared onto the weeping sores. In some towns, bonfires blaze in the streets in a futile attempt to purge the air, while elsewhere, pigs are paraded through the alleys, believed to absorb the plague, but to no avail. The plague relentless surges through homes, parishes, and beyond, indifferent to the nobility of its victims or the purity of their faith. King Alfonso XI of Castile falls, as does the daughter of King Edward III of England. In Avignon, the papal seat, over half of the cardinals succumb. Entire monasteries become silent tombs, their inhabitants entombed within. As fear mounts and despair grips the hearts of the people, a sinister suspicion begins to take root. Surely this is divine retribution, a scourge for humanity's sins. Or perhaps there lurks a more earthly villain, a human hand orchestrating this descent into darkness. Whispers of dread echo through the cobblestone streets as tales of Jews poisoning wells and lepers and beggars maliciously spreading disease weave a tapestry of fear. Pogroms erupt like wildfire and witch hunts intensify each flare, a tragic note in the symphony of despair. Yet amidst this maelstrom of misery, a new figure emerges, the plague doctor, a beacon of both hope and foreboding. With traditional medicine faltering, and the established authorities buckling under the weight of the crisis, city councils desperate for any semblance of control turn to these enigmatic figures. They are a motley crew, young physicians, their hearts pounding with civic duty, scientific curiosity, or the stark necessity of survival. Barber surgeons with their rudimentary skills, apothecaries, and even laymen, all drawn by the promise of steady wages in these turbulent times. Consider the tale of Charles Delarme, a 17th century French physician whose name has become synonymous with the plague doctor's iconic attire. While protective clothing had been employed for centuries, it was Delarme's design that captured the imagination, his silhouette forever etched in the annals of history through countless woodcuts and engravings. Envision this otherworldly figure enveloped from head to toe in heavy, glossy oilcloth, stiff with wax and reeking of it. Under a broad leather hat, his face is hidden by a mask, glass eyes peering out, and a long beak stuffed with straw herbs and spices to filter the foul air. His hands sheathed in thick leather gloves and his feet in boots, he wields a slender cane to prod at the afflicted from a distance. Imagine him, this spectral apparition, appearing at your doorway as you toss and turn in feverish agony, your family's cries mingling with the stench of decay. How ghastly, how utterly alien he must have seemed in that moment of vulnerability. The plague doctor, not just a healer, but a harbinger of the dire times, a figure as terrifying as the plague itself. Imagine, if you will, a figure cloaked in dread, yet paradoxically a beacon of hope amidst despair. The plague doctor, often mistaken for the Grim Reaper, was indeed a sight to strike fear into the hearts of the townsfolk, chased out by a mob in one chilling account. Who could blame them? Yet, under layers of oilcloth and behind those glass eyes, there beat hearts as human and as fearful as any. They were not impervious to the scourge that ravaged the land, fully aware that their elaborate garb was but a fragile shield against the unseen foe. Duty drove many of these men a noble calling that, as one surgeon poignantly expressed, honor and conscience compelled them to aid those who had supported their education. Their bravery was not merely professional, it was profoundly personal. However, not all were saints in this dark chapter of history. Some were lured by the lucrative prospects in a time of economic turmoil, amassing small fortunes through exorbitant fees charged to desperate communities. Others, in a twist of moral compromise, accepted bribes from grieving families to alter death certificates, allowing the plague's victims to escape the ignominy of mass burial, instead receiving a dignified farewell. What then was a day in the life of these enigmatic figures? For some, the day's grim duties commenced before the first light with a visit to the plague pits. These were not mere graves, but abysmal trenches where the dead lay stacked like logs. Here the doctor would scrutinize the newly arrived, noting details for the city's grim ledger: age, sex, symptoms, time of death. He would supervise the grim procession of body carriers, the night soilmen, as they carted away the infected remains. As dawn broke, the doctor's silhouette, a harbinger of doom, would move through the streets, his presence announced by the solemn tolling of a bell and the haunting cry, "Bring out your dead." With a somber, heavy heart, he would tap his cane against each door, the echo of his somber call resonating through the silent streets, "Bring out your dead." From a safe distance, he would then scrutinize the sick, his gaze catching the telltale signs of plague fever: chills, swollen buboes, limbs turned black as night. He would converse with the remnants of families, their eyes filled with a desperate hope, as he offered his grim prognosis, prescribing treatments steeped in the ancient wisdom of humor, balance in the murky waters of superstition. Oh, how the plague doctor's remedies were a bleak tapestry of folk cures and sanctioned quackery. Bloodletting with its lancets and leeches was their misguided attempt to purge the body of what they believed to be tainted blood. Purges with emetics and laxatives were administered, aiming to rid the body of invisible toxins. Buboes were lance-oozing sores cauterized with the ferocity of boiling oil or the searing touch of red-hot irons. But dear readers, treatments grew even more bizarre. Imagine mercury and arsenic thought to cure by similarity, or the crushing of emeralds and pearls into tonics. Potions from ground unicorn horn, sold at prices that would make a king weep, were touted as elixirs of life. Plague waters, a concoction of vile ingredients, from treacle to the very pus of the dead, were peddled as miracle cures. And let us not forget the famed theriac, a potion with the over 60 ingredients, including viper flesh and opium, aged like the finest of wines, yet as effective as a whisper against the storm. Alas, none of these concoctions consistently turned the tide against the relentless tide of death. Some did survive, perhaps through sheer luck, natural immunity, or a rare accidentally beneficial remedy. But for most, their suffering was only intensified by the well-meaning but futile efforts of those masked figures. Yet the plague doctors persevered, driven by a sense of duty, perhaps desperation, or even the cruel comfort of delusion. They sustained themselves as they could, some with the solace of drink, others with the bitter resolve of their grim task, ever searching for a light in the darkest of times. Among the somber echoes of history, the tale of those who faced the dread specter of the plague unfolds with a haunting resonance. In their daily dance with death, these physicians and healers bore witness to the most macabre spectacles of human decay. While some drowned their sorrows in opium, others found a twisted solace in the gallows humor that emerged from the grotesque scenes they encountered daily. A poignant figure amidst this darkness was the Italian poet-physician Michele Savonarola, whose pen became his refuge. He wrote, "I opened many corpses. I did not fear death. I served the sick with constancy, and I learned much from these cases." His words, etched with the weight of his experiences, offer us a glimpse into the relentless battle against the plague, where each day was a testament to human resilience and fragility. In this grim tableau, a few figures rose to fleeting fame or infamy. Nostradamus, the French astrologer and alleged seer, began his journey not in the stars but in the heart of the 1520s plague. For years, he toiled in Provence, crafting a mysterious rose pill, its recipe now lost to time. Was he a miracle worker or a conjurer of dark arts? Opinions varied, but his transition from healer to occultist left an indelible mark on history. Then there was Paracelsus, the Swiss-German thinker who dared to defy the established humoral theories with his alchemical insights. He viewed the plague not as a divine punishment, but as a poison to be combated with other poisons, mercury, arsenic, and opium. His methods, both praised and condemned, challenged the stagnant waters of medieval medicine, stirring waves of change even as he himself fell victim to the plague in 1541. Lesser known, yet no less significant figures like John of Burgundy left their imprints through their writings. His treatise advocating for bleeding, purging, and the bizarre yet telling practice of using live chickens to draw out the disease reflects the desperate yet inventive measures taken in the face of overwhelming despair. These individuals, each in their own way, crafted a narrative of survival, innovation, and sometimes resignation in an era where death was not just a possibility, but an omnipresent companion. Their stories, woven into the fabric of our collective memory, continue to resonate, reminding us of the human spirit's capacity to endure and adapt, and ultimately to hope. As the relentless tide of pestilence began to ebb in the waning days of the 17th century, the figure of the plague doctor, once a beacon of desperate hope, started to recede into the shadows. Among them was Thomas Fairford, an Englishman who boasted of curing hundreds with his peculiar concoction of honey treacle and the macabre scrapings of human skulls. And let us not overlook the enigmatic Michel de Nostradam, not to be confused with the famed Nostradamus, who captured a macabre celebrity with his flamboyant attire, red leather boots, and a cloak adorned with scorpions and arcane symbols. As the plague's grip slackened, the necessity for such dramatic remedies waned. The new breed of physicians, armed with a burgeoning empirical mindset, began to cast a critical eye over the once celebrated cures, often finding them lacking in both merit and morality. Some of these erstwhile healers, like Nostradamus himself, pivoted to other endeavors, while others, their coffers filled from their grim trade, retired or simply vanished into the annals of history. Yet the plague doctor was not to be so easily forgotten. He had etched himself indelibly into the tapestry of popular culture, becoming a spectral figure in folklore, a staple in literature, and a haunting presence in art. In the eerie Danse Macabre and other memento mori works, he led the doomed in their final ghastly parade. Artists like Albrecht Dürer and Hans Holbein immortalized him as a dark, foreboding messenger, a specter that both fascinated and horrified. Writers, too, were captivated by his mystique. Boccaccio wove him into his Decameron. Daniel Defoe brought him to life in A Journal of the Plague Year, and Edgar Allan Poe conjured his image in The Masque of the Red Death. In our modern era, the plague doctor has found new life. Video games like Assassin's Creed have cast him as a villain, while Japanese manga and anime have reimagined him as a gothic hero. But amidst this dark allure, let us not forget the profound human suffering that underpin this figure's legend. What stories of despair, resilience, and loss are hidden in the shadow of this grim specter? The plague doctor's macabre iconography is a haunting testament to humanity's encounter with an unimaginable horror. These were brave souls stepping into the abyss armed only with pseudoscience, superstition, and a ghastly costume. Their motivations varied. Some were driven by noble self-sacrifice, while others succumbed to crass opportunism. Yet what stands out most starkly is not this divergence, but the universal human response to calamity, a cocktail of altruism and avarice, curiosity and terror, reason and madness. If there's a lesson to be gleaned from the grim visage of the plague doctor, it might be this: in times of crisis, people cling to any semblance of certainty, no matter how deceptive or misguided. They turn to shamans and showmen, to folklore, and old wives' tales, to prayer and prophecy, to desperate quackery. And in their confusion and despair, they often lash out, seeking scapegoats, seeing in others the specters of their own fears. This lesson resonates profoundly in our own time of pandemics and cultural disquiet, when we face the uncanny and the implacable, the dangers both minute and mystical. How do we equip ourselves with science, with reason, with compassion and steadfast resolve? Or do we too, in our moments of fear, reach for the nostrums and talismans, the face masks and funny hats, the seductive certainties of a bygone era? As we reflect, allowing these questions to waft and wane like the imagined miasmas of medieval lanes, we might catch the faint rattle of the plague doctor's ain, a hollow memento mori tapping at history's door, warning us of the dangers of forgetting and urging us to confront our fragile humanity. From this cozy distance across centuries, yet not so distant at all, the plague doctor's figure looms a stark reminder of our enduring complex nature. In the shadowed corridors of history where tales of dread and valor intertwine, there stands a sentinel, unyielding in his watch. He is a guardian, perhaps in his own enigmatic manner, guiding us through the dark labyrinths of time. As we pause here, dear listener, let us reflect on the eerie yet captivating narrative we've traversed and ponder the mysteries that await. The life of a plague doctor was not merely one of duty, it was a relentless battle against despair and death. These figures, often cloaked in the somber hues of mourning, their faces hidden behind grotesque beaked masks, were more than mere physicians. They were beacons of hope in a time shrouded by fear. But amidst these shrouded saviors, some shone brighter, etching their names into the annals of time. Consider Michel de Nostradam, better known to the world as Nostradamus. Before his prophetic fame, this young Frenchman wandered the plague-ravaged lands of Provence in the 1520s, armed with nothing but his medical knowledge from the University of Montpellier. His method, bloodletting, herbal concoctions, and rigorous hygiene, were unorthodox, perhaps ineffective, yet they painted him as a figure of compassion and dedication in an era of hopelessness. Did his heart ache as he watched the suffering? What drove him to such lengths? Then there's the legendary Dr. Schnabel von Raum, immortalized in a chilling 17th century engraving by Paul Fürst. This gaunt specter draped in black, his hat as wide as the brim of death, holds a long cane, a tool of his trade. His mask, elongated like a bird's beak filled with straw, and aromatic herbs, was his shield against the invisible enemy, the miasmas of disease. Imagine him standing there, a solitary figure, against the backdrop of a city in agony, his presence both feared and revered. What thoughts haunted him behind that mask? These plague doctors, with their macabre attire, were not just practitioners of medicine. They were symbols of an era, embodiments of human resilience in the eternal struggle against the unseen. In the shadows of Rome, whispers of a peculiar figure known as Schnabel spread like wildfire. This enigmatic character, cloaked in mystery, was said to have entranced the very essence of the plague, leading it away with his haunting, echoing calls. "I am the plague doctor." Picture him, if you will, as a Pied Piper of pestilence, guiding the Black Death away from the city with his spectral presence. Yet not all heroes of this dark period were shrouded in legend. Consider John of Burgundy, a 14th century French physician whose name resonates through the annals of history. Amidst the chaos of the Black Death, he penned a treatise, a beacon of hope titled The Cure and Prevention of the Pestilence. His approach, a melding of the ancient wisdom of Galen with the raw, earthy remedies of folklore sprinkled with the solemnity of religious rites. Imagine him fervently promoting bloodletting, purging, and concocting the mysterious Theoria, a potion potent with viper flesh, opium, and an astonishing array of up to 80 other ingredients. He was a man who believed fervently in the power of prayer, penitence, and pilgrimage to exorcise the plague, attributing its wrath to a celestial alignment of Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars. While John's remedies did little to quell the relentless bacterium, his writings sculpted the medieval response to what would become Europe's most catastrophic health crisis. These plague doctors, from the celebrated to the unsung, united by a singular noble purpose to tend to the afflicted, to confront the grim reaper with nothing but the meager tools and scant knowledge of their era, often at the peril of their own lives. Some, like Nostradamus, would find fame beyond the plague's shadow. Others, like the legendary Dr. Schnabel, became symbols of the terror that gripped the continent. And figures like John of Burgundy, despite the questionable efficacy of their treatments, left an indelible mark on the tapestry of medieval medicine. In the face of such a merciless adversary, their bravery, their relentless spirit stands as a monument to human resilience, a beacon through the darkest of times. As the Black Death swept across medieval Europe, it not only ravaged bodies but also seared itself into the collective psyche, influencing art and literature in ways that echo through the ages. In the tapestry of history, few images are as striking and emblematic of the macabre essence of an era than that of the plague doctor with his foreboding, beaked mask and dark engulfing robes. This spectral figure, a silent harbinger of death, swiftly became a staple in the art of the medieval and Renaissance periods, haunting the pages of illuminated manuscripts, stark woodblock prints, and the brooding canvases of oil paintings. Among these, one cannot forget the Dance Macabre, or Dance of Death, an allegorical motif that emerged in the 15th century showcasing the impartiality of death. Here, skeletons and decayed bodies lead a ghastly parade of humanity, from the highest noble to the lowliest peasant, towards their inevitable end. In many such depictions, the plague doctor joins this eerie dance, his beaked visage and shadowy cloak rendering him a spectral twin to the grinning skulls around him. Consider Peter Bruegel, the Elder's 1562 masterpiece, The Triumph of Death, a canvas awash with nightmarish visions, skeletons, an army of the departed, ravage a barren landscape, indiscriminately reaping lives. At the heart of this chaos, a gaunt plague doctor leans over a dying man, his mask giving him the ghastly semblance of a predatory bird. The painting encapsulates the sheer terror and despair of an age besieged by death, with the plague doctor as its somber emblem. Nor was this figure confined to visual arts alone. He lurked within the pages of medieval and Renaissance literature. Giovanni Boccaccio's The Decameron, penned in 1353, recounts the tales told by young Florentines seeking refuge from the Black Death. Here, plague doctors appear as characters of dubious morality, often depicted as either ineffective impostors or cold-hearted profiteers. In a poignant scene, one such doctor demands payment up front to treat a dying man only to be outwitted in a twist of fate. Oh, the irony of a time where death was both the great equalizer and the ultimate deceiver. In this chilling tapestry of history, the figure of the plague doctor, that grim sentinel draped in black robes and crowned with a beaked mag, continues to loom large. Oh, how their presence haunts not only the annals of time, but also the pages of literature, from Daniel Defoe's A Journal of the Plague Year to Edgar Allan Poe's The Mask of the Red Death. Defoe, with his meticulous accounts of the 1665 Great Plague of London, painted these doctors as valiant, yet tragically impotent against the overwhelming tide of disease. Their efforts, though noble, were but a whisper against the roar of the epidemic. And then in Poe's macabre short story, A Masquerade Ball, a scene of supposed escape from reality turns into a chilling encounter with death itself. Here, a figure whose mask mirrors the visage of a corpse infiltrates the revelry, bringing the plague to the unsuspecting and decadent partygoers. This imagery, stark and unforgiving, captures the essence of the plague doctor, a harbinger of doom, a reminder that death spares no one, from the lowly peasant to the lofty prince. From the medieval Dance Macabre to Poe's Gothic tales, the plague doctor emerges as an enduring symbol, a stark emblem of humanity's vulnerability in the face of inevitable demise. In an era where medicine faltered, these dark angels offered a sliver of hope, yet their presence was a grim testament to the despair that gripped the populace. Their beaked masks, those haunting symbols of quarantine and protection, were a constant reminder of the ever-looming specter of death. As the late 14th century saw the ebbing of the Black Death's great wave, Europe, battered and scarred, began its slow crawl towards our recovery. Yet the shadow of plague never truly lifted. It lingered, flaring up in periodic outbreaks over the next 3 centuries. During these times, the plague doctors, with their eerie attire, remained the vanguards of medical response, their appearance, a chilling emblem of the persistent threat. However, as the 17th century dawned, the era of these specialized practitioners began to wane, their once vital role fading into the annals of history, leaving behind a legacy as complex as the diseases they fought. As the relentless grip of the plague loosened, its pervasive shadow retreated into sporadic localized outbreaks. Cities once besieged by the specter of death no longer saw the necessity in employing full-time plague doctors. Meanwhile, the winds of change fueled by the Renaissance and the burgeoning scientific revolution began to sweep through the medical landscape, dismantling age-old beliefs about disease and treatment. At the forefront of this medical renaissance was the Swiss physician Paracelsus, a revolutionary thinker who boldly dismissed the ancient Greek doctrine of the four humors, a cornerstone of medieval medicine. He posited that ailments stem from specific, identifiable causes, not from some nebulous imbalance within the body. Paracelsus championed the use of chemical remedies and the therapeutic benefits of mineral baths, advocating for a stark departure from the plague doctor's traditional practices of bloodletting and purging. As these enlightened medical philosophies gained ground, the once revered methods of the plague doctors faced a storm of criticism. Treatments like slathering mercury ointments or inducing vomiting with hellebore were increasingly viewed not just as futile but outright dangerous. The iconic beak mask, once believed to ward off the pestilential miasmas, now stood as a symbol of antiquated folly, mocked by those embracing the new scientific era. Yet despite the discrediting of their practices, plague doctors persisted in parts of Europe. In cities like Marseille, Messina, and Moscow, where the plague occasionally reared its ugly head, in the 17th and 18th centuries, local authorities still summoned the eerie figure of the plague doctor with his beaked mask and somber black robes to care for the afflicted. One of the final bearers of this fading tradition was Jean-Jacques Paul, serving during Marseille's Great Plague of 1720. A distinguished surgeon trained under the famed anatomist Guillaume Denier Paul donned the traditional garb and worked ceaselessly among the sick, his dedication undimmed by the skepticism surrounding his methods. His efforts during this time of crisis, though rooted in an era of superstition, were a testament to the enduring human spirit's fight against disease. The applause for Paul's dedication and skill resounded through the ages, yet his triumph was but a singular beacon in a storm of despair. By the twilight of the 18th century, the once luminous figure of the plague doctor had begun to recede into the shadows of history, a haunting emblem of an era when death prowled the cobblestone streets and medicine stood helplessly by. The final sighting of this spectral figure in Europe occurred in 1819 amidst the cholera outbreak in Cephalonia, Greece. Thereafter, the beaked mask and somber robes of the plague doctor were relegated to the annals of time, becoming mere echoes in the chambers of history and legend. In our current era, where antibiotics and vaccines reign supreme, it is nearly impossible to fathom the sheer terror and desolation that enveloped medieval Europe during the Black Death. Yet the image of the plague doctor endures not just as a historical footnote, but as a stark, chilling reminder of a time when death was an ever-present companion, lurking just beyond the veil of life, and when humanity's hope flickered against the relentless advance of an implacable adversary. From our 21st century vantage point, one might be tempted to dismiss the medieval plague doctor as a figure of futility, a charlatan peddling worthless cures against an unyielding scourge. Indeed, many of their treatments, from the barbaric practice of bloodletting to the application of mercury ointments, offered scant solace against the relentless tide of the Black Death. There were those among them who perhaps exploited the vulnerability of a society gripped by fear for their own gain. Yet to simply relegate the plague doctor to the realms of historical oddity or moral lesson would be to overlook the profound legacy they left behind. In the face of unimaginable terror, these brave souls, these guardians of the afflicted, stepped forward not just as practitioners of medicine, but as symbols of human resilience and compassion. They stood on the front lines facing an enemy that eluded understanding and from which escape was rare. Armed with scant knowledge of the true essence of the disease they battled, they wielded the meager tools and theories of medieval medicine. The plague doctor in this grim tableau emerges as a beacon of human endurance and empathy amidst a sea of despair. At a time when the instinct to flee or cower from the contagion was overwhelming, these doctors chose instead to stand firm, confronting the horror head-on, often at grave personal peril. They offered comfort, a tender touch and solace to those writhing in the throes of illness, even though their remedies might now seem futile. Yet let us not dismiss their efforts too hastily. Their treatments were the pinnacle of medical wisdom of their epoch. The theory of the four humors, which posited that illness stemmed from imbalances in bodily fluids, had been the bedrock of Western medicine since the age of Hippocrates. The iconic beaked mask, stuffed with aromatic herbs to ward off the bad air, was a direct application of the miasma theory, a logical, albeit misguided approach by today's standards. In this context, the plague doctor stands as a precursor to our modern medical heroes, confronting the colossal health crises of their era with the scant resources at hand. Just as today's physicians and nurses have waged war against diseases like COVID-19 with ventilators and experimental vaccines, the plague doctors of yore battled the Black Death with leeches and potions, striving valiantly against a terrifying unknown. Yet the plague doctor was not without flaw. A product of their time, they bore the limitations and sometimes the vices of their era. Some, it's true, may have leveraged their position for personal gain or succumbed to the same fears they sought to quell in others. But in their courage and their commitment to alleviate suffering, they remain a poignant symbol of humanity's relentless spirit to fight, to care, to hope, even when hope seems most fleeting. But let us delve deeper into the enigmatic figure of the plague doctor. In a world where power often equates to the ruthless exploitation of the vulnerable, these masked healers stood as a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. Yes, their methods were steeped in superstition, their remedies sometimes harmful, yet to dismiss them solely for these shortcomings would be to overlook the profound significance of their role. Imagine the terror that gripped societies as the plague ravaged through them, leaving death and despair in its wake. Into this abyss stepped the plague doctor, their very presence a stark contrast to the darkness enveloping the land. They were not just physicians, they were symbols of resilience, a testament to the unyielding human spirit that seeks to comfort, heal, and persevere even when the odds seem insurmountable. Consider the plight of those they treated, the fear, the isolation, the loss of loved ones. In such dire times, the arrival of the plague doctor was not merely medical intervention, but a profound act of humanity. They offered not only physical remedies, but also a reminder that someone somewhere was trying to make sense of the madness, to bring order to the chaos, to restore hope where it had all but vanished. As we reflect on their legacy, we are compelled to ask ourselves, what does the figure of the plague doctor teach us today? In our modern era, plagued by pandemics, environmental crises, and social discord, their image haunts us, a spectral reminder of life's fragility and our own limitations in controlling nature's wrath. Just as they did, we face an invisible, terrifying enemy, equipped with the tools of our time, which are far from perfect. We witness the spectrum of human behavior, from the heights of altruistic bravery to the depths of misinformation and selfish exploitation. Yet in this narrative of darkness, there are glimmers of light. The plague doctor's story is not merely one of historical curiosity, but a beacon of enduring human compassion. It compels us to remember that even in our darkest hours, there are always those ready to serve, to protect, and to fight for the light of knowledge and understanding. This legacy, this lesson from the past, encourages us to look beyond our fears, to see the potential for progress, and to cherish the unbreakable bonds of human kindness. In an age where the world often feels cold and unfeeling, the figure of the plague doctor emerges as a beacon of our collective ability to nurture and support each other even amidst the most dire circumstances. As we navigate through the monumental trials of our current era, let us hold fast to the teachings of this enigmatic healer, embracing the dual torches of science and compassion, while acknowledging the boundaries of our understanding. Imagine the courage required to face the unknown with a heart full of empathy, The plague doctor, with their daunting beak-nosed mask and dark robes, teaches us to act bravely and with kindness even when fear and uncertainty loom large. This spirit of endurance and empathy which carried our forebears through the bleakest times of the Black Death must be our guide as we confront the challenges before us. The haunting image of the plague doctor, cloaked in the shadows of history, offers not just a reflection on our past, but a spark of inspiration for our future. Rather than viewing them as a mere artifact of history, let us cherish their legacy as a vivid symbol of humanity's capacity for both great darkness and profound light. From their story, we learn the invaluable lesson that the human spirit, resilient and indomitable, remains unbroken even in the face of the most harrowing adversities. How can we not be moved by such a testament to the indomitable will of the human heart? Let us, in our own times of trial, channel this same spirit of resilience and compassion, honoring the past while forging a hopeful path forward. As our exploration through the annals of history draws to a close, we reflect on the journey from the harrowing depths of the Black Death to the hopeful light of modern medicine. This enigmatic figure, the medieval plague doctor, has etched an indelible imprint on our collective consciousness, a testament to the resilience and spirit of humanity. Let their legacy stand not as a somber echo of a past era, but as a vibrant beacon of courage, compassion, and the undying human spirit even amidst the darkest times. Oh, how their tales resonate with us, urging us to carry the same torch of hope and determination as we face our own trials and tribulations. Let their story be our guide, a source of inspiration and enlightenment as we tread through the uncertainties of our modern world. Thank you for embarking on this voyage through the shadow pages of history with me. I trust that this deep dive into the existence and essence of the medieval plague doctor has not only informed but also stirred your thoughts, illuminating the figure who has long been cloaked in mystery and myth. Until our next historical sojourn, this is your guide bidding you farewell from the intriguing world of bygone eras. And remember, in the bleakest moments, the enduring strength of the human spirit offers us hope, a light that never truly fades. Now let us turn the page to profiles of notable plague doctors. Among these brave souls, a few have etched their names into the tapestry of time, their deeds echoing through history. Perhaps the most renowned is Michel de Nostradame, better known as Nostradamus. Before his fame as an astrologer and seer, the young Frenchman dedicated himself to healing during the plague outbreaks of the 1520s and 30s in Aix-en-Provence. Nostradamus, with his rose pill, a unique herbal remedy, touched the lives of hundreds, earning the admiration and respect of those he served. His dedication to alleviating suffering during those dire times stands as a testament to the power of one individual's resolve to make a difference. As a plague doctor, Nostradamus bore witness to scenes that could shatter the soul-bloated, corpses weeping sores and the maddening cries of the afflicted. These grim visions undoubtedly seared into his psyche, painting a stark canvas of life's fragility in the looming shadow of death. Is it any wonder then that his later prophecies brimmed with forewarnings of cataclysmic events, from the Great Fire of London to the ominous rise of Hitler? Could it be that the nightmares of plague hospitals birthed his dark visions of a future ravaged by pestilence? Yet not all tales of plague doctors are steeped in gloom. Take, for instance, the enigmatic Dr. Schnarble of Rome. Though shrouded in mystery, his legend lives on through a chilling 17th century engraving by the German artist Paul Fürst. Here, Dr. Schnarble stands a sentinel of doom in his full regalia, looming over a cityscape littered with the dead and dying. Folklore whispers that he could entice the plague itself to cling to his waxed leather coat. With a taunting laugh and a mocking stance, he would then cajole the disease into retreat, leaving the town in peace. This fanciful tale of a heroic doctor baiting the plague speaks volumes about the human yearning for a savior in times of despair. Dr. Schnarble embodies the hope that even amidst the darkest pandemics, the ingenuity and bravery of individuals can turn the tide. On the academic side, one figure emerges distinctly: John of Burgundy. In 1365, he penned a treatise on the epidemic, a beacon of knowledge that would guide countless plague doctors in their relentless battle against the scourge. His work advocating for advanced remedies stood as a testament to human intellect, striving against overwhelming odds. Time, with its relentless march, saw John, like his peers, prescribing treatments as varied and often as bizarre as bloodletting, purgative medicines, and herbal fumigations. Yet his recommendations veered into the realm of the macabre, with treatments like applying a plaster concocted from tree frogs, or sipping a brew infused with powdered gems and the mythical horn of a unicorn. But the most infamous of all was John's fervent promotion of thek, a supposed cure-all concoction. This potion, a grotesque blend of viper flesh, opium, and myriad other ingredients, had its roots in ancient lore, but was thrust into the limelight by plague doctors like John, peddled as a panacea for ailments ranging from mere stomach aches to the dread Black Death itself. Alas, it proved futile, yet its shadow lingered, a testament to the enduring allure of magical cures gracing the shelves of European apothecaries for centuries. Figures like Nostradamus, Dr. Schnurl, and John of Burgundy embody the multifaceted legacy of the medieval plague doctor. These were men of intellect and tenacity who waged a dire war against an unseen foe with naught but rudimentary tools and pseudoscience at their disposal. Yet they were also opportunist charlatans who thrived on fear and ignorance, cloaked in the macabre attire of their profession. They stand as symbols of both noble sacrifice and the perilous path of unbridled quackery. Their tales, woven with threads of bravery and folly, continue to captivate, casting light on a bleak yet crucial epoch in human history. Part 7 delves into the plague doctor's enduring presence in art and literature. For a profession so brief yet enigmatic here, their image has left an indelible mark on the canvas of artistic expression. Their distinctive beaked masks peer out from medieval and Renaissance works, often embodying the ever-looming specter of death. One of the earliest depictions graces a 15th century French manuscript where a hawk-like plague doctor looms ominously over a bedridden patient, his accusatory finger pointing as if to seal the fate of the afflicted. This portrayal of plague doctors as harbingers of death crescendos in the Danse Macabre or Dance of Death, a poignant motif in late medieval art, where death's dance is universal, sparing none. In the gallery of human existence, the painting The Danse Macabre unfurls a haunting tableau where figures from every stratum of society, kings, serfs, bishops, and babes alike, waltz in an eerie conga line towards their final resting place. Who, you might wonder, conducts this spectral parade? None other than the plague doctor, skeletal-beaked, and with a bony hand ushering souls into the great beyond. This grim figure also lurks at the fringes of Renaissance masterpieces, such as Peter Bruegel, The Elders, The Triumph of Death, where amidst the inferno of skeletal marauders and flaming vessels, he saunters with an air of detachment, as if the havoc around him were but a mere inconvenience. In literature, the plague doctor is often cast as a figure of both dark comedy and profound tragedy. Boccaccio, in his Decameron, sets the stage with 10 young Florentines fleeing the Black Death, their days filled with bawdy tales. The initial yarn revolves around the pompous Dr. Simone della Tosa, a charlatan who prides himself on diagnosing ailments through the mere examination of urine. When a mischievous prankster swaps the samples, the ensuing comedy reveals the doctor's ludicrous misdiagnosis, a pregnant man indeed. However, other authors have portrayed plague doctors as symbols of stoic duty amidst despair. Daniel Defoe's A Journal of the Plague Year features Dr. Heath, a fictional physician, who with grim determination tends to the sick and the dead, embodying the futility of human endeavors against the relentless tide of disease, yet also the imperative of resilience. The romantic yet macabre portrayal of the plague doctor finds its pinnacle in the works of Edgar Allan Poe, where the doctor becomes more than a mere character. He is the very personification of death's inevitability, a specter in a world turned inside out by plague. In the eerie annals of literature, the figure of the plague doctor has cast a long, dark shadow, most notably in Edgar Allan Poe's haunting tale, The Mask of the Red Death. Here, Prince Prospero and his courtiers, in a desperate bid to escape the ravages of a ghastly plague, barricade themselves within the somber walls of a Gothic abbey. At the height of their revelry, a masquerade ball turns macabre with the arrival of a spectral guest draped in their death's own shroud and sporting a chilling, blood-stained beak. This intruder, the embodiment of the Red Death itself, walks among the merrymakers, sowing panic and death with each step. One by one, the revelers fall, struck by the realization that death spares none. From the pages of medieval chronicles to Poe's genius, the plague doctor persists in our cultural psyche, merging the roles of savior and specter. With their foreboding attire and almost prophetic aura, these doctors have always served as potent symbols of both the fascination and the dread of death itself. Today, they still evoke our primal fears of contagion, solitude, and the abyss of the unknown. As the Black Death's devastating waves ebbed towards the late 17th century, so too did the presence of these grim figures prowling through Europe's cities. The need for specialized physicians to combat the plague dwindled as outbreaks grew less frequent, and improvements in hygiene slowly mitigated the disease's ferocity. By the Enlightenment's dawn, these doctors had largely faded from the medical scene, becoming mere echoes in the chambers of history and folklore. The decline of the plague doctor can be attributed to several factors. Primarily, there was a significant reduction in demand. The plague transitioned from a relentless scourge to a more manageable, though still deadly illness. While the bubonic plague persisted into the 19th century, particularly in Eastern Europe and the Ottoman Empire, it no longer incited the same degree of societal collapse and existential dread that characterized the medieval era. As the shadow of the plague grew less menacing, morphing into a persistent, nagging presence, rather than a harbinger of doom, the fervor for specialized plague warriors waned. Concurrently, the intellectual currents of the age began to ebb away from the entrenched beliefs and rituals of the plague doctor tradition. The ancient Greek theory of humoral medicine, which had long held sway over Western medical thought, was increasingly undermined by the burgeoning scientific revolutions of the 16th and 17th century. Visionaries like Paracelsus and Vesalius boldly contested the prevailing wisdom that ailments stemmed from imbalances in the body's fluids, advocating instead for explanations rooted in chemistry and anatomy. As this empirical mindset took root, many scholars started to cast doubt on the efficacy of traditional plague remedies, practices like bloodletting, forced purgation, and the administration of toxic substances such as mercury and arsenic. In 1665, the English physician Nathaniel Hodges unleashed a blistering critique decrying the plague doctors and their archaic methods as not only ineffective, but potentially lethal. For Hodges, the path to combating epidemics lay not in grotesque masks and blood-sucking leeches, but in vigilant observation, stringent quarantine, and meticulous hygiene. Yet the transition was not immediate. In regions of Europe, especially those perennially besieged by Ottoman forces in their pestilent caravans, the figure of the plague doctor endured well into the 18th century. A tragic tale from 1720 recounts a Russian plague doctor who, in a misguided attempt to cleanse the air, was brutally beaten to death by a mob convinced he had summoned demons with his fumigations. By the Napoleonic era, however, the plague doctor had largely vanished from the medical landscape, more likely to be encountered as a whimsical costume at a masquerade than a grim sentinel on the disease-ravaged battlefield. The beak doctor, now a spectral emblem of bygone pandemics, stood as a poignant reminder of misguided medical practices of the delicate balance between life and death. The profession once so vital had faded into the annals of history, its disappearance a mirror to the shifting paradigms of medical science. The traditional garb of his profession, with a beak-like mask filled with aromatic herbs to ward off the stench of death, the Schnarble became a beacon of hope in a time shrouded in despair. His appearance was a stark contrast to the bleak streets his mask a symbol of both fear and fascination. As Rome suffered under the relentless grip of the pestilence, Dr. Schnarbel's figure was not just a sight for sore eyes, but a glimmer of light in the darkness. Oh, how the citizens must have yearned for a savior, someone to lead them out of this valley of death. With every step he took, the city watched with bated breath, their hearts aflutter with a mixture of dread and desperate hope. Could this be the one to end their nightmare? The transition from the solitary contract-based plague doctors to a more structured medical system did not erase the deep-seated images of these enigmatic figures from the European psyche. Indeed, the departure of these individual doctors into the annals of history only deepened the mystique surrounding them. They were not just physicians. They were the harbingers of fate, the last resort against the relentless onslaught of disease. In Rome, as Dr. Schnarbel moved through the cobblestone streets, his presence was like a whisper from the past, reminding all of the days when plague doctors were the frontline warriors against epidemics. Their disappearance left a void, a longing for the days when a single figure could embody the struggle against death itself. Was Dr. Schnarbel merely a man, or was he something more? A myth, perhaps, or a legend born from the collective trauma of a city in distress? The enduring allure of the plague doctor, symbolized by Dr. Schnarbel's mysterious persona, speaks volumes about humanity's eternal dance with death and disease. They are relics of a time when medicine was as much about the arcane as it was about the empirical, when a lone figure in a haunting mask could be the thin line between life and the abyss. Their legacy, though cloaked in shadow, continues to echo through the ages, a testament to the resilience and the fears of a civilization that has faced the darkness and lived to tell the tale. Amidst the shadows of a city ravaged by plague, Dr. Schnarbel emerged as a spectral figure, his attire as grim as the profession he had chosen. The long waxed coat clung to his form, a wide-brimmed hat casting his face in perpetual shade, and his beak mask an ominous emblem of death itself. With each step he stalked the cobblestone streets, a harbinger of hope or dread, visiting the homes where despair had taken residence. Witnesses of that era recount a chilling ritual. Upon entering a home, Dr. Schnarbel would approach the bedridden, their bodies besieged by fever and the telltale buboes. From the mysterious depths of his coat, he would draw forth a small vial, claiming it held a secret essence, a distillation of the very plague that ravaged the city, with a ceremony that seemed part magic, part madness. He would uncap the vial and in a language unknown, an ancient chant behind the mask's beak, his voice a muffled echo of another world. This essence, he would proclaim, will draw the pestilence from the sufferer's body, pulling it back into this vessel. He would then reseal the container, trapping the disease within. Night after night, this macabre dance continued, Dr. Schnarbel moving through the city like a wraith from one house to another, from one street to the next. As whispers of his peculiar methods spread, so too did tales of his supposed successes. Some claimed his patients experienced miraculous recoveries, their black boils receding, fevers breaking like the dawn. Yet in an era steeped in superstition and desperation, rumors grew wild and untamed. Darker stories circulated that Dr. Schnarbel was a sorcerer, his essence a witch's concoction, perhaps even a pact with the devil. As the epidemic began to wane, Dr. Schnarbel disappeared as suddenly as he had arrived. Some believed he fled Rome, others that the plague claimed him as its own. Whispers still suggested he was nothing more than a figment, a collective hallucination born from the city's terror and grief. Though his existence remains a mystery, Dr. Schnarbel's legend lives on, immortalized in a haunting engraving that captures his gaunt figure, a silent testament to a time when hope and fear walked hand in hand. In the shadow of a city besieged by pestilence, Dr. Regalia stands a figure both ominous and hopeful. This image encapsulates the enigmatic nature of the plague doctor, who embodies the very essence of life and death intertwined. From the late Middle Ages through the early Renaissance, as the Black Death left an indelible mark on Europe's collective memory, the plague doctor became an emblematic figure in art and literature, weaving through time with a haunting presence. Imagine the Dance Macabre, or Dance of Death, an allegorical masterpiece birthed from the aftermath of the plague, illustrating death's indiscriminate reach. Here the plague doctor often takes center stage, not as a healer, but as a skeletal figure in a beaked mask and black robe, leading a grim parade to the grave. A chilling example is the fresco in Paris's Cemetery of the Innocents from 1424, where this macabre doctor, grinning beneath his mask, guides the dance, a stark, satirical twist on the medical profession. Peter Bruegel, the Elder's 1562 painting, The Triumph of Death, further captures this eerie duality. Amidst a landscape ravaged by death where skeletons wreak havoc, a figure in plague doctor attire moves among the fallen, a medical reaper offering no salvation, but instead a stark reminder of human frailty. These artistic representations are not merely historical curiosities, they are poignant reflections of the profound psychological trauma inflicted by the Black Death and its relentless return. To the people of medieval and Renaissance Europe, the plague doctor was not just a medical practitioner, but a symbol of mortality itself, a constant reminder of the lurking peril of pestilence. This symbolism seeped into literature, as evidenced by Giovanni Boccaccio's works in the 14th century, where the plague doctor's image became a metaphor for the ever-present specter of death. What does this tell us about the human condition, where hope and despair dance so closely together? As the young nobles of Florence, desperate to escape the relentless grasp of the Black Death, fled to the countryside, their path crossed with an enigmatic figure draped in a black cloak, his face concealed by a grotesque mask, an unmistakable nod to the plague doctor of old. This spectral apparition, a haunting reminder of the pestilence that ravaged their world, would later inspire the dark and twisted tales of Gothic horror. Edgar Allan Poe, in his 1842 masterpiece, The Masque of the Red Death, conjured a similarly chilling figure cloaked in a funeral shroud and sporting a mask that echoed death itself. Though not explicitly named as such, this character borrowed heavily from the plague doctor's macabre iconography, embodying the very essence of disease and mortality. Fast forward to the present, and the plague doctor has not merely survived, but thrived, morphing into a cultural icon in steampunk literature, video games, and beyond. This transformation speaks volumes about the enduring grip of this dark symbol on our collective psyche. Even in our era of advanced medicine, the sight of that beaked mask and foreboding robe still stirs a primal fear, a stark reminder of our fragility when faced with pandemics. Yet as the Black Death faded into the annals of history, so too did the relevance of the plague doctor. By the dawn of the 17th century, the medieval humoral theories which once justified their treatments began to crumble under the scrutiny of emerging scientific thought. The Swiss physician Paracelsus, a pioneer in toxicology, boldly rejected the notion that diseases stemmed from imbalances within the body's fluids. Instead, he posited that illnesses had specific external triggers, setting the stage for the advent of germ theory. With this new understanding, the plague doctor's toolkit, laden with the bloodletting, purging, and the use of toxic mercury, appeared not just outdated, but downright barbaric. As outbreaks dwindled in frequency and intensity, the specialized role of the plague doctor slowly receded into obsolescence. By the 18th century, this once vital figure had become little more than a ghostly echo from a time when the world was still learning to fight back against the invisible enemy. In the shadowed corners of a bygone era, the echoes of plague doctors could still be heard, though their appearances were becoming as rare as whispers in the wind. Eastern Europe and Russia in particular saw these figures cloaked in mystery and dread, even as late as the 1770-1772 Moscow plague epidemic. Imagine the scene: Empress Catherine the Great, with the weight of an empire on her shoulders, summoning these spectral healers to Moscow, desperate to stem the tide of death. Yet even in this dire hour, the plague doctor's efficacy was but a flicker of hope in a storm of despair. Contemporary chronicles paint a grim picture. Many of these doctors were ill-prepared, their methods as antiquated as the plagues they fought. Some tragically might have even hastened the disease's spread through their mishandling of the sick and the dead. Oh, the irony of well-intentioned actions turning into inadvertent vectors of doom. As the Enlightenment's light began to pierce through the darkness of ignorance, the figure of the plague doctor slowly dissolved into the annals of history. Yet their legacy lingers not as paragons of medical science, but as icons of human endurance and the frailty of our understanding in the face of overwhelming calamity. From our modern vantage, it's all too easy to scoff at the plague doctor, to brand them as relics of pseudoscience and superstition. Indeed, their practices often exacerbated the agony of the afflicted, adding layers of torment to an already unbearable situation. But let us pause for a moment and consider the nobility in their resolve. Here were individuals armed not with the certainty of science, but with the armor of duty folklore, and an unyielding faith who dared to step into the very heart of catastrophe. In an age when the very nature of disease was cloaked in mystery, these men and women risked all for the sake of their fellow humans. Isn't there something profoundly moving about that? Their story, then, is not merely one of medical missteps, but of human spirit, of ordinary souls rising to meet extraordinary challenges. Amidst the swirling chaos of history, humanity has always grappled with the inexplicable wrestling to find harmony in a world often fraught with disorder. In those bygone days, the plague doctors, with their beaked masks and dark robes, ventured into the unknown with methods that might now be questioned. Yet their intentions were noble, seeking to shield their communities from the ravages of disease. Their legacy, steeped in an aura of macabre intrigue, has etched itself into the very fabric of Western culture, embodying not merely the terror of epidemics, but the timeless battle against the enigmatic and the elusive. This battle rages on, undiminished by time. The recent tumult of the COVID-19 crisis has starkly reminded us that despite our advances, we are but a heartbeat away from our medieval forebears. We've endured the abrupt onslaught of illness, the upheaval of society, the crushing weight of despair. Like the inhabitants of 14th century Florence or 17th century Rome, we've turned to our modern healers as lights in our darkest hours, witnessing them clad in protective armor, bravely confronting an invisible foe. In their valor and commitment, we discern the same spirit that once drove the plague doctors, albeit now equipped with the might of science, with tools like ventilators and vaccines rather than the quaint, if misguided, practices of yore. Yet the core narrative remains unchanged, the relentless endeavor to uphold life and honor against formidable odds. Thus, the tale of the plague doctor transcends mere historical curiosity. It serves as a vivid reflection of our own era, a poignant reminder of life's fragility and the unyielding strength of the human spirit. Looking back through the ages in the figure of the plague doctor, we see not just a relic, but a beacon of our shared humanity, a testament to our eternal quest for understanding and resilience. In the visage of the plague doctor, we see not just a reflection of our own fears and aspirations, our strengths and frailties, but a symbol of unyielding resolve in the direst of times. These enigmatic figures, with their haunting presence, embody the resilience of the human spirit, standing firm against the tide of despair. Worst assertion 04:15. Perhaps then the true legacy of the plague doctor does not lie within the pages of medical lore, but rather in the fortitude of our collective heart. Amidst unimaginable terror, these brave souls held their ground, offering slivers of solace and glimmers of hope. They have in their steadfastness become eternally etched in our shared consciousness. 40. They stand as a monument to the indomitable spirit that has guided humanity through its bleakest epochs. As we confront the uncertainties of our current era, could we not find inspiration in the example set by the plague doctor? Not for their medical methodologies, but for their bravery and compassion in times of crisis. 105:03. For as long as we have breath and love within us, we will stand against the shadows of disease and desolation, just as those valiant doctors did centuries past. In this defiant act of hope, we keep the torch of human resilience alight, a beacon that no darkness can dim. 05:26. Thus, let us pay homage to the plague doctors, not with blind reverence, but with a clear understanding of their era. Let us take lessons from their errors as well as from their courage. And let us perpetuate their legacy, not as a mere echo of a bygone era, but as a vibrant testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit. 0551. For in their story we learn that even in the darkest hours when faced with horrors beyond comprehension, there remains a flicker of hope, a testament to our resilience. There is always hope, an ember of resilience burning bright in the promise of grace that whispers through the ages. This lesson, a beacon of light, guides us through the darkest of times, illuminating the unbreakable ties that bind our shared humanity. As we rest our weary heads, let this wisdom seep into our dreams, a soothing balm. Let us find solace in the certainty that no matter how impenetrable the night, the dawn will inevitably break. Let us confront the trials of our era with the same valor and empathy that once animated the ancient plague doctors, trusting that together we can endure any tempest. As the haunting figure of the plague doctor receded into the annals of history, his legacy lived on, immortalized in art, literature, and folklore. For generations, his eerie silhouette would continue to enthrall the imaginations of people from Europe and beyond. One of the most poignant artistic depictions can be found in the Danse Macabre, or Dance of Death, a recurring theme in medieval art. These grim tableaus, often gracing the walls of churches and the gates of cemeteries, portrayed the universal fate of death across all social strata. Amidst the skeletal dancers and the fallen, the foreboding presence of the plague doctor often loomed a stark reminder of the indiscriminate touch of the Black Death. In a similar vein, the plague doctor graces the chilling Triumph of Death fresco at the Palazzo Abatellis in Palermo, Sicily. Created by an artist lost to time in the late 15th century, this harrowing work captures death himself, astride a skeletal steed wielding a scythe as he crushes underfoot people from every walk of life. In the shadows, a cloaked figure, the plague doctor attends to the dying, a specter of death in his own right. These poignant reminders, these echoes of our past ask us, can we not find in our hearts the same courage, the same compassion to face the specters of our own times? The macabre image of the plague doctor with their beaked masks and waxed leather cloaks did not confine itself to the visual arts alone. No, their chilling presence seeped into the very fabric of literature, lingering long after the Black Death had receded into history's shadows. Giovanni Boccaccio, the Italian poet and scholar, bore witness to the plague's ravages in Florence, and in his seminal work, the Decameron, published in 1353, he enshrined the figure of the plague doctor. This collection of tales features 10 young Florentines who, in their escape from the city's pestilence, recount stories where the plague doctor emerges as a spectral emblem of death and despair. Oh, how this figure haunted the pages of European literature through the centuries. Daniel Defoe, in his A Journal of the Plague Year from 1722, vividly recounts the eerie sight of plague doctors prowling the streets of London. Their distinctive attire, a grim harbinger of the horrors within the city's quarantined homes, sent shivers down the spine of every reader. But even in the 19th century, when the last major outbreak of bubonic plague in Europe was but a distant memory, the ghost of the plague doctor persisted, woven into the very threads of the Gothic imagination. Edgar Allan Poe's The Masque of the Red Death introduces a mysterious figure dressed in a robe spattered with blood and a mask who intrudes upon a masquerade ball, bringing with him the fatal disease. Though not named explicitly as a plague doctor, Poe's creation bore all the chilling attributes of this iconic figure. Yet as the outbreaks of plague dwindled in frequency and severity through the 17th and 18th centuries, the necessity for such specialized medical figures waned. Their once celebrated methods and cures faced the scrutiny of a new era of medical thought, questioning the effectiveness and the very essence of these grim practitioners. The Swiss physician and alchemist Paracelsus, born in 1493, a visionary who dared to challenge the very foundations of medical practice that had ensnared Europe for centuries. With the boldness of a revolutionary, he turned his back on the traditional Galenic medicine, which included the humoral theory so integral to the work of the plague doctors. Instead, Paracelsus championed a fresh, daring approach grounded in the solid earth of observation, the thrill of experimentation, and the alchemy of chemical remedies. Oh, how he scorned the plague doctors, branding them as mere charlatans and quacks more engrossed in the jingle of their fees than the cries of the afflicted. Paracelsus's fiery critique found echoes in the hearts of other medical reformers, like Ambroise Paré of France and Thomas Sydenham of England. They raised their voices against the treatments of bloodletting and purging, which they claimed only served to sap the strength of patients, leaving them more vulnerable to the merciless grip of the plague. As these new enlightened ideas took root and flourished, the once celebrated practice of employing specialized plague doctors began to wither. By the dawn of the 18th century, these figures had largely vanished from the landscape of Western Europe, though their spectral presence could still be felt in the more secluded, less enlightened corners of the continent. In the Balkans and pockets of Eastern Europe, for instance, they lingered on, summoned to battle sporadic outbreaks as late as the 1830s. Yet as the world turned, the plague doctor became not a beacon of medical prowess, but a haunting emblem of the darkest times, a testament to the desperate lengths to which humanity would go to combat the unimaginable horrors of the Black Death. Today we gaze upon their legacy with a cocktail of fascination and repulsion. On one hand, their courage in facing a fearsome adversary, often at great personal peril, commands our respect. Many of these doctors were among the few brave souls willing to step into the shadows of death to offer aid, even if their methods now seem archaic or misguided. Amidst the shadow of the Black Death, brave souls did not merely stand by. They ventured into the heart of despair, offering solace and medical aid to the afflicted. Figures like Nostradamus, with hearts brimming with hope, delved into uncharted territories of medicine, seeking desperately for a remedy that could halt the plague's relentless march. Yet despite their earnest efforts, the plague doctor's journey was fraught with pitfalls. Their well-intentioned attempts often fell short, their methods at times not only ineffective, but downright detrimental. In their quest, shrouded in the darkness of ignorance about the true origins of disease, they turned to the arcane, to superstition, to pseudoscience, to remedies that promised more than they could deliver. In the grip of desperation, they occasionally preyed upon the populace's terror, offering false hopes of salvation. Herein lies a mirror to history's medical mavericks, from the grave-robbing resurrectionists to the hucksters peddling their dubious elixirs. The plague doctors, in their quest to be seen as saviors, often danced on the edge of morality, their roles as healers blurred with those of tricksters. Yet it is this very complexity that renders the plague doctor an endlessly captivating enigma. Within their tale, we encounter the timeless human battle against the looming threat of death and illness. We witness the frantic search for light in the overwhelming darkness, as the clinging to hope when all seems lost. Their legacy persists, echoing through the quarters of time, touching every new epidemic that challenges humanity, from the Spanish flu to AIDS to the current specter of COVID-19. Each crisis resurrects the same dilemmas, the same dance between science and fear, between personal safety and the call of duty. We too navigate these tumultuous waters, striving to find balance in a world where the specter of disease still haunts. In times as foreboding as those during the Black Death, we naturally turn to our physicians and caregivers, entrusting them to navigate us through the tempest. Our faith, our very existence, rests in their capable hands, with the hope that their expertise and dedication will lead us into the embrace of better tomorrows. Yet the narrative of the plague doctors serves as a poignant reminder that trust is a delicate and valuable treasure. It must be cultivated through the diligence of science, the warmth of compassionate care, and a steadfast allegiance to the truth, even when that truth pierces the heart with fear or dismay. The ultimate lesson imparted by the plague doctors transcends the realms of medicine and mortality. It speaks to the eternal human quest for significance and purpose amidst the void. Even in the bleakest of moments, there emerge those willing to illuminate the path forward despite their own imperfections and human frailties. Thus, we recall the plague doctors not as paragons of heroism or embodiments of villainy, but as embodiments of a far more intricate and profoundly human essence. These were individuals who faced the unimaginable, armed only with the tools and wisdom at their disposal. Propelled by duty, empathy, and perhaps a whisper of dark curiosity. In their eerie appearance, we glimpse a mirror of our own soul, our fears and aspirations, our vulnerabilities and our resilience. Their tale offers a peculiar, somber solace, affirming that even when confronted with the most harrowing of adversities, the human spirit persists relentlessly seeking light within the shadow. Let us then honor the legacy of the plague doctors, not with blind adoration, but with an enlightened comprehension. Let us glean wisdom from their errors and their victories, their science and their folklore. And let us perpetuate their legacy as we confront the trials that lie ahead. As we navigate the tumultuous waters of our era, let us do so with a heart full of courage, a spirit of compassion, and a steadfast dedication to truth. Indeed, the tale of the plague doctor is our own saga, a profound testament to humanity's unending quest for significance and optimism amidst a world that can be both harsh and indifferent. Even when shrouded in the deepest shadows, there persists a faint spark, a whisper of grace, yearning to be uncovered. Thus, we hold in our hearts the memory of those enigmatic figures from bygone centuries. We do not perceive them as specters or monsters, but as companions on this grand, treacherous voyage of existence. With reverence and humility, we honor their legacy, recognizing that in their narrative, we glimpse our reflection. Let us retire to our dreams, envisioning a realm where their remembrance is not tinged with dread or loathing, but embraced with empathy and comprehension. May we dream of a world where the wisdom of the plague doctors is not merely a relic of the past, but an integral thread in the tapestry of our existence, a poignant reminder of our collective humanity, our shared vulnerability, and our communal fortitude. And when dawn breaks, let us rise with renewed vigor, prepared to confront whatever adversities lie ahead, fortified by the insights of history and the promise of tomorrow. For in the essence of their story lies the true inheritance of the plague doctor, a legacy of resilience, of unwavering persistence, and the eternal capacity of the human spirit to prevail over the darkest of epochs. As we continue this exploration, let us delve into the lives of those notable plague doctors who, through their relentless battle against the scourge or the captivating lore that surrounds them, etch their names into the annals of history. Amidst the shadowy figures that haunted the grim streets of plague-ridden Europe, one young man emerged destined for a peculiar fame. This was none other than Michel de Nostradam, who before his name was whispered in awe, as Nostradamus bravely served as a plague doctor in France during the 1520s. Educated at the University of Avignon, his hardened hands were steeped in the suffering of Provence, where he not only tended to the afflicted, but also introduced what might be seen as revolutionary practices for his time: fresh air, clean water, and the removal of the dead to cleanse the environment. Some whisper that he crafted an early form of a rose pill rich in vitamin C to bolster the bodies of the sick. While contemporary scholars question these tales, his encounters with the plague undeniably sculpted the young physician, perhaps igniting his later fascination with foreseeing what lies ahead. Equally shrouded in mystery was Dr. Schnabel of Rome, a figure whose existence is more legend than fact. Yet his visage, immortalized in a 17th century engraving by Paul Fürst, captures the imagination. There he stands, a spectral figure in his macabre costume, moving through a town littered with the dead and the dying. Dr. Schnabel, it is said, was a man of bold and mystical methods, daring to go where others feared to tread. Stories abound of him parading through the streets, beating a drum, with the hope that its rhythms would repel the plague like a mystical Pied Piper. His arsenal included not only conventional treatments, but also alchemical elixirs, astrological charms, and spells, alongside the gruesome task of lancing buboes. The truth behind these tales might be murky, but Dr. Schnabel's striking portrayal in Fürst's work has cemented his legendary status in the annals of plague doctors. Turning the page, we find a figure of more scholarly repute, John of Burgundy, a French physician who's written works on the plague. In the 1360s, a grim specter known as the Black Death swept through Europe, leaving devastation in its wake. Amidst this chaos, a manuscript titled The Treatise on the Epidemic emerged, penned by none other than John of Burgundy. His work was not just a mere compilation of medical advice. It was a beacon of hope, a guide through the darkness of the plague. Burgundy, with his scholarly prowess, disseminated the era's standard treatments: bloodletting, the lancing of boils, the administration of purgative medicines, and the fumigation of living spaces with aromatic herbs. Yet it was his advocacy for theriac, an ancient Greek concoction, that truly captured the public's imagination. Imagine a potion, a supposed cure-all crafted from an eclectic mix of viper flesh, opium, exotic spices, and sweet honey. This was theriac, heralded as a panacea for the plague and myriad other maladies. Oh, how it must have soothed the pain with its narcotic embrace, but alas, its healing powers were more myth than reality, offering little in the fight against the relentless disease. Burgundy's writings, however, did more than promote treatments. They elevated him to a revered status as an authority on the plague. His name became synonymous with expertise resonating across medieval Europe. These were the times of extraordinary figures like Nostradamus the visionary, Dr. Schnurl the eccentric, and John of Burgundy the scholar. Each donned the ominous plague mask, stepping into the fray against the Black Death, their efforts etching them into history. But what of their legacy? These men, some earnest in their dedication, others perhaps misguided or opportunistic, all played a role in shaping the enduring image of the Plague Doctor. Their stories, whispered through the ages and immortalized in print, gave rise to a figure both feared and revered, a haunting presence in art and literature. As the Black Death carved its merciless path, the Plague Doctor emerged in the art of the time: woodcuts, manuscript illustrations, and engravings. Here these skeletal figures, clad in their beaked masks, walk through towns ravaged by illness, almost as if they were harbingers of death themselves. This macabre imagery, reaching its zenith in the 14th and 15th centuries, painted a vivid picture of the era's darkest times, where medicine and myth intertwined, creating legends that still echo through the quarters of time. In the haunting epics of the 15th century, artists, ever the chroniclers of their time, turned to the figure of the Plague Doctor to etch into their works the pervasive fear and the grim reality of a world ravaged by the Black Death. One such poignant motif was the Danse Macabre, or Dance of Death, where the skeletal forms of death itself led a ghastly parade. Here, the skeletal Plague Doctor joined the macabre dance, a chilling reminder of death's relentless grip on life. Imagine the chilling scene from an anonymous 15th century Italian engraving, a grim procession of the plague's victims, led by a triumphant, scythe-wielding plague doctor against a backdrop as bleak as the fate it foretold. This imagery, not confined to engravings, also adorned the margins of illuminated manuscripts and the stone exteriors of churches, serving as a stark warning that none could escape the plague or the ominous heralds of its arrival. The silhouette of the Plague Doctor, with its haunting presence, became an emblematic figure for artists seeking to encapsulate the essence of those death-saturated times. Beyond the immediate aftermath of the Black Death, the Plague Doctor's image persisted in literature. By the 1600s, as subsequent waves of plague still threatened Europe, these figures haunted the pages of notable works. Giovanni Boccaccio, who himself survived the Florentine plague, wove the Plague Doctor into his narrative tapestry in the Decameron, using it as a symbol of human vanity and hypocrisy. Across the Channel, Daniel Defoe, in his A Journal of the Plague Year, drew on the London outbreak of 1665 to bring the Plague Doctor to life in his journalistic fiction. And who could forget the macabre touch in Edgar Allan Poe's The Mask of the Red Death? Here, a Plague Doctor-like mask appears at a decadent masquerade, a harbinger of doom amidst revelry, a chilling reminder that no festivity can outrun the inevitable. Through these varied canvases and pages, the Plague Doctor stands as a spectral memento, mori, an enduring symbol of the fragility of life whispering to all, "Remember you must die." As the sands of time trickle away, life's fleeting nature and death's unyielding dominion loom ever larger. 24th or 41. With their eerie mass and an air of inescapable doom plague, doctors stood as chilling symbols of the fear and fragility that epidemic diseases sowed into the hearts of medieval Europeans. Even as the Black Death waned and medical knowledge began to inch forward, the plague doctor remained etched in both art and literature, a grim reminder of history's darkest hours. But in the tangible world of the late 17th and 18th centuries, the era of these spectral figures was mercifully drawing to a close. By the late 1600s, what once was an ominous presence had begun to appear as an antiquated shadow from a more savage age. The terror of the Black Death's original onslaught had subsided, with outbreaks now confined to smaller, less frequent eruptions across Europe. 125 to 39. Concurrently, new medical philosophies and scientific inquiries started to gently erode the medieval doctrines on disease. Leaders and scholars began to view the methods of the old plague doctors not just as ineffective, but as potentially harmful charlatanism. One such critic was the Swiss-German physician Paracelsus, often hailed as the father of toxicology. 126-03. In the 16th century, he derided the complex concoctions and superstitious rituals of the plague doctors, famously stating, "Patients are not helped by all these things any more than a cow is helped by a new door." Others criticized the practice of bloodletting-induced vomiting and the lancing of boils, practices that likely only exacerbated the suffering of the afflicted without offering any real cure. Verse 26. The slow but sure rise of anatomical studies, chemical experiments, and empirical observations in the 1500s and 1600s pushed doctors to challenge the ancient Greek humoral theories that had long dominated plague medicine. Moreover, authorities grew weary of the exorbitant fees demanded by these wandering physicians, whose credentials were often as questionable as their cures. Oh, how the tides of time turn. What once was a beacon of dread now fades into the annals of history, leaving us to ponder, how did we ever let fear dictate our approach to healing? By 1650, the era of hiring specialized plague doctors under lucrative contracts had begun to wane in most major cities. These cities shifted their trust towards the more established figures of municipal and royal physicians. The once celebrated intricate outfits of these doctors, a symbol of psychological solace rather than actual defense, gradually vanished from the streets. Doctors now champion the virtues of quarantine sanitation and milder treatments like soothing syrups and spices, steering clear of the once revered yet toxic remedies. Alas, the enigmatic figures with their beak-like masks wandering through the medieval plague-ridden landscapes started to fade into oblivion. Yet this did not signal the end of epidemics. The specter of the bubonic plague haunted many regions well into the 19th century, particularly in Eastern Europe and the Ottoman Empire. Cities like Seville, Marseille, and Moscow faced terrifying outbreaks as late as the 1770s. In these later times, a scant few plague doctors continued their grim trade, albeit in modified attire. A Flemish engraving from 1656 captures one such figure, his snout-like mask and long leather cape, a relic of bygone days. A Nuremberg document from 1819 describes plague surgeons in wide-brimmed hats, goggles, and beak-nosed masks attending to outbreaks in Ottoman lands. By then, however, these plague doctors were more a chilling curiosity than a common sight. As the Enlightenment age unfolded and modern medicine took its first breaths, the old ways of the plague doctor slipped quietly into the annals of history. Their leather-clad silhouettes and haunting masks largely disappeared from European streets, becoming characters in storybooks and echoes in the nightmarish collective memory of the medieval world. Yet even as their profession faded, the plague doctor lingered on as a symbol, a stark reminder of those darker times when death was a familiar companion. Their legacy, as intricate and enigmatic as the potions and talismans they once bore, continues to intrigue and unsettle us, a testament to human resilience and the relentless march of progress. From a modern medical standpoint, it is tempting to dismiss the medieval plague doctor as nothing more than a relic of a bygone era at best, or a harmful charlatan at worst. Indeed, their methods ranging from the barbaric practice of bloodletting to the application of mercury-laden salves undoubtedly inflicted more pain than they alleviated. Patients in their desperation subjected themselves to these horrifying and futile treatments, clinging to the slimmest hope of evading a merciless disease. Medical understanding was still centuries away from any true enlightenment. Yet amidst this bleak panorama, one might find a glimmer of nobility in the plague doctor, particularly during those initial apocalyptic surges of the Black Death. These figures were often not just the greedy swindlers or fame seekers we might imagine. Many were courageous volunteers and low-ranking surgeons risking their very lives out of a sense of civic duty. Imagine the bravery it took to step into that role. The mortality rate for these doctors was staggeringly high, possibly reaching up to 65%. Their eerie bird-like masks and long robes provided little more than a psychological barrier, offering perhaps a fleeting comfort to those they treated. Living with the constant dread of contracting the plague themselves, these doctors navigated a morally ambiguous landscape. Were they serving humanity or exploiting its fears? The finest among them were driven by a genuine desire to care for the sick, to perform the grim tasks that society shunned, like handling the dead and monitoring the spread of the disease. However, the worst were no better than grave robbers or peddlers of false cures preying on the vulnerable. Most plague doctors, however, resided in the gray area in between, striving to assist while also capitalizing on the only thriving market in a world falling apart. Were they heroic figures or opportunistic villains, true healers or mere costume frauds? The answer, unsatisfying yet fitting, is that they were all of these things. More than any other medical figure, the plague doctor epitomizes the complex, often contradictory nature of humanity when faced with overwhelming adversity. In the throes of humanity's darkest hours, where impotence and desperation reigned supreme, people faced horrors that stretched beyond the grasp of control or understanding. Despite their vast knowledge, seasoned expertise, and daring experiments, they found themselves powerless against the relentless advance of the plague. In an era steeped in faith, even the most fervent prayers seemed to bounce off the impenetrable wall of this apocalyptic devastation. Oh, the chilling sight of the plague doctor, that grim specter of doom. When this masked figure approached, it was as if a harbinger of death itself loomed near, signaling to the afflicted that their fate was sealed either by the merciless disease or by the eerie figure stalking toward them. No surprise then that such a figure haunts our collective nightmares, an enduring symbol of fear and foreboding. Yet within these foreboding figures was embedded a profound human spirit, the relentless drive to face our most terrifying fears and battle on even when victory seemed an impossible dream. These doctors, armed with tools as likely to harm as to heal, waded into a war they were bound to lose. Yet they persisted with a blend of bravery, tenacity, and an all-too-human mortality, their efforts driven by a refusal to succumb to despair, a defiance that echoes through the ages, inspiring healers in every subsequent crisis. While we might critique their methods today, we must also honor the humanity that propelled them forward. Some of these valiant doctors clung to the belief that by donning that foreboding attire and venturing into the noxious miasmas, they might just save a handful of souls, or at the very least bring some comfort to those in their final moments. Isn't it true that sometimes the most potent medicine is the one that dares to hope against all odds? This complex tapestry of failure, intertwined with resilience of desperation, mingled with resolve, is what renders the plague doctor such a haunting yet compelling figure in our collective memory. It mirrors the same dark fascination we hold for the frontline warriors of our current pandemics, their faces obscured by the protective gear that has become the emblematic mask of our time. The plague doctor stands as a stark reminder of our own capacity to confront the abyss, to fight on when hope seems but a distant flicker in the enveloping darkness. In the heart of chaos, where blindness and delusion reign amidst the storm of pestilence, there stands our unyielding spirit, beacon of defiance against the abyss. Oh, how we refuse to bow to the void, clinging stubbornly, inspiringly to life. On to 33-34. These plague doctors with their macabre masks and somber robes are at once a memento mori, a stark reminder of life's fragility and a testament to the unbreakable tenacity of the human spirit. In the end, the enduring image of the plague doctor serves as a mirror to our modern selves. Separated by centuries from the miasmic mysteries of the medieval world, we are yet bound by the same primal terror of pandemics. Warntaschen 33-57. Gazing into the vacant glass eyes of that beaked mask, we see our own frantic efforts to combat COVID-19, our own halting steps in the eternal battle against invisible enemies that have haunted us since the dawn of time. Despite the chasms of medical knowledge and technological advancement, these differences seem to vanish in the face of the relentless human struggle against infectious disease. The legacy of the plague doctor whispers a lesson that our current crisis has bellowed anew. It tells us, with a voice both ancient and immediate, that despite our vaunted scientific prowess and intricate social systems, we are far more vulnerable than we dare to confess our bodies. Our societies can unravel with terrifying swiftness when faced with a malevolent microbe. But 34-48, our knowledge, so often held in high esteem, is always a step behind nature's cruel curveballs. The plague is the ultimate humbler, as one modern virologist eloquently put it. It reminds us, like the foreboding silhouette of the plague doctor, how little control we truly wield. Yet in this grim figure, there is also a symbol of our indomitable spirit to resist, to fight on, however clumsily, against adversaries we scarcely comprehend. 135-19. They embodied the very essence of human existence, the blend of fear and duty, superstition and science helplessness intertwined with resolve. From their valiant, albeit imperfect efforts, we draw a profound inspiration to face our own microbial adversaries. Their legacy is not just one of caution, but of courage, a clarion call to resilience in the face of the unknown. Oh, how the indomitable spirit of humanity persists through the ages. With the same courage and steadfastness that once defined the plague doctors, we too must navigate these treacherous waters of our modern pandemics. If the plague doctors symbolize medieval ignorance and suffering, they are equally an emblem of eternal human resilience and boundless compassion. Half a millennium since the last of these masked figures hung up their garb, we find ourselves wrestling with the same dilemmas that once plagued them. The frantic quest for remedies, the heated debates over freedom versus confinement, and the selfless dedication of doctors on the front lines, battling not just disease, but despair itself. Now, as in those distant times, we are reminded that medicine, despite its technological marvels, remains a profoundly human pursuit entwined with culture and emotion as much as with logic and science. The healers of yesteryears and today are only as potent as the tools and theories at their disposal, and only as insightful as the fearful, vulnerable societies they strive to save. Thus, let us not forget the plague doctor, with all their eerie ambiguity, a cautionary tale, yes, but also an inspiration. They stand as an avatar of both fatal ignorance and noble sacrifice, a reflection of our own faltering fight against the microscopic adversaries that have sculpted human history more profoundly than any ruler or conqueror. They are a stark reminder of life's tragic vulnerability before the might of untamed nature, yet also an icon of our relentless refusal to bow to that grim arithmetic. Above all, they are an enduring testament that even in our darkest, most afflicted, and death-haunted moments, there will always be those brave souls who don the mask and dare to confront the scourge face to face. As they did, so must we. In the chronicles of time, certain plague doctors emerge, their tales shining like beacons, through the fog of history, their contributions indelible during times of unimaginable crisis. One such figure, in the annals of history, Michel Nostradam, better known to the world as Nostradamus, stands as a figure both enigmatic and revered. Long before his name became synonymous with prophecies and celestial predictions, this young Frenchman dedicated himself to a far more immediate and harrowing task. Fresh from the halls of the University of Méliès, where he completed his medical studies, Nostradamus embarked on a mission that would test the very fibers of his being. He plunged into the heart of darkness, treating the victims of the devastating bubonic plague. In the 1520s and 30s, the air was thick with despair in his hometown of Sanita province, and then in the surrounding areas like Marseille and Aix-en-Provence. Nostradamus, with a fervor that could only be described as divine, threw himself into the fray. He did not just treat, he healed, he comforted, he fought. Rather than succumbing to the conventional methods of bloodletting and purgatives, he championed cleanliness, fresh air, and the purity of water. Imagine, if you will, this young doctor, his hands crafting herbal concoctions, his mind ever seeking solutions. He formulated remedies like the renowned rose pill, a blend of rose hips, cypress iris, and the finest sawdust from Greenwood. Though modern science might question the efficacy of these potions, the communities he served did not. Their gratitude was palpable, their appreciation boundless. Local officials lauded him, and through his own practices, he managed to sidestep the plague's deadly embrace. But at what cost? The relentless parade of death and suffering left an indelible mark on his psyche. His later writings betray a soul touched by melancholy, a mind haunted by the occult and visions of apocalypse. One cannot help but ponder the depths of despair that must have shadowed the path of this man who would later be known as the harbinger of doom. And as we turn the pages of history, we encounter another figure shrouded in mystery, yet equally emblematic of the plague's dark era. Darsh Schnabel of Rome, a name whispered in awe and fear, immortalized not by his deeds, but by a 17th century German engraving. The image, Dr. Schnabel von Rom, captures him in the iconic plague doctor attire, the long beak-like mask casting an ominous shadow, a silent sentinel against the ravages of time. Oh, the tales that whisper through the quarters of time, among them the legend of Dr. Schnabel stands out, a beacon of eccentricity in the darkest of times. Imagine, if you will, the narrow, stench-laden alleyways of Rome during a severe plague outbreak. Here strides Dr. Schnabel, his figure almost mythical, cloaked in a waxed leather coat, his face obscured by a beaked mask. With a lantern clutched in one hand and a long stick in the other, he ventures forth not to escape the plague, but to challenge it head-on. As he winds through the city, Dr. Schnabel's voice echoes off the ancient stones, calling out to the invisible specter of death. "Bring out your dead," he bellows, his voice tinged with both mockery and bravery. "The doctor is here to cure you." Can you picture it? This audacious figure daring the very essence of the plague to confront him in this bizarre duel. Yet despite the theatricality of his actions, the true effect of Dr. Schnabel's antics on the plague remains shrouded in doubt. Did he really manage to lure the disease away as the legend suggests? Perhaps not, but his story lingers, a grim yet captivating narrative of one man's audacious and peculiar battle against the insurmountable. Not all who donned the mask of the plague doctor were such flamboyant characters. Many were just ordinary physicians or lay people thrust into the role by necessity, performing their grim duties amidst the horror. Take, for instance, John of Burgundy, a 14th century French physician. His legacy wasn't forged in dramatic flair, but through the quiet resolve of his writings. In 1365, as the plague tore through Europe, John penned a treatise, a beacon of practical advice for those grappling with the epidemic's relentless grip. His work, a detailed guide, championed the use of phlebotomy bleeding as a cure alongside meticulous instructions on how to lance and cauterize the grotesque swollen buboes that marked the plague's most dreadful sign. John also prescribed a variety of medicines and tonics, both to be ingested and applied externally. Among these, the most renowned was a concoction known as the theriac, hailed as a universal antidote. Thus, while Dr. Schnarbel's tale captivates with its bravado, it is through the diligent and somber work of individuals like John of Burgundy that the true narrative of the plague unfolds, revealing the spectrum of human response to an age-old adversary. In their quest to combat the relentless tide of poisons and diseases, plague doctors wielded a curious concoction known as theiac. This elixir, often a bizarre blend of opium and viper flesh among dozens of other ingredients, was a fundamental weapon in their arsenal, its effectiveness became shrouded in doubt, yet indispensable nonetheless. This brew, alongside numerous other treatments detailed in the epidemic, focused texts of the time, became one of the most widely circulated medical documents of the medieval period. Over the centuries, these writings were reprinted time and again, shaping the standard plague treatments across Europe and quietly etching John of Burgundy's name into the annals of medical history. These brief glimpses into the lives of those behind the beaked masks reveal a tapestry of characters, from the erudite physicians to the humble lay healers and even the dubious charlatans and profiteers. Each, in their own distinct way, contributed to the legend of the plague doctor, a figure at once heroic in their selfless service and eerie in their pseudo-scientific practices, a haunting presence in the collective human psyche. As the Black Death receded into memory, the figure of the plague doctor lingered on, immortalized in European art and literature. With their foreboding beaked masks, somber black cloaks, and an air of mortality, they became emblematic of human vulnerability and the scourge of pestilence. In visual arts, these spectral figures often appeared amidst scenes of despair and death, casting long, dark shadows over the canvas of human suffering. Among these, one of the most striking early depictions is The Triumph of Death, a 15th century fresco by the Italian artist Buamico Buff Macaco. Adorning the walls of the Camposanto Monumentale Cemetery in Pisa, this chilling piece captures the Black Death's devastating sweep. Here, amidst the heaped bodies and the cries of the bereaved, a figure of dread looms, a plague doctor, symbolizing both the harbinger of death and the desperate hope of survival. From the shadows, a figure draped in a black hood and adorned with a beaked mask steps forward, a plague doctor unmistakable in his haunting attire. With a finger pointed accusingly at a cluster of young noblemen and women, he seems to declare that death does not discriminate. It comes for the rich just as surely as it does for the poor, 425. This motif of the plague doctor as a harbinger of death, a spectral messenger of mortality, weaves its way through the tapestry of medieval and Renaissance art. Another chilling artistic trope that features these macabre figures is the poème dance macabre, or dance of death. This allegorical genre, popular in the late Middle Ages, portrays an eerie procession where figures from every stratum of society, kings, popes, peasants, and children alike, are drawn into a somber parade to the grave by skeletal personifications of death itself, work 54 and 57. Within these ghastly vignettes, plague doctors often appear, their grotesque masks and eerie outfits enhancing the pervasive sense of dread and the inescapable fate that awaits all. A striking example is Matouche Marien's 1649 engraving, where a beaked plague doctor joins the doomed parade, holding aloft an hourglass, a stark reminder of life's fleeting essence. 22. But the presence of these grim figures was not confined to the visual arts alone. Their spectral influence stretched across the pages of literature through the centuries. In the 14th century, the Italian author Giovanni Boccaccio penned The Decameron, a collection of novellas set during the Black Death in Florence, which 44 into 44. Although not central, plague doctors make fleeting yet poignant appearances in these tales, often portrayed as symbols of the futility of human efforts against divine wrath. In one vivid passage, Boccaccio describes these doctors as men who did nothing but wander with their spices and medicaments, the stench of which alone could have induced sickness in any who encountered it. 46 or 07. As the centuries unfolded, the image of the plague doctor would continue to emerge, haunting the collective psyche of an era marked by its own mortality. Amidst the chilling annals of Gothic literature, the plague doctor emerges as a figure both haunting and emblematic. In Edgar Allan Poe's somber narrative, The Mask of the Red Death, a spectral guest clad in the garb of the grave, his visage concealed by a mask, eerily reminiscent of death itself, intrudes upon a lavish masquerade. This masquerade, a desperate attempt to escape the ravaging pestilence outside, is instead invaded by this grim figure, embodying the relentless march of contagion. Poe crafts this character not merely as a harbinger of doom, but as a malevolent supernatural force, a manifestation of death personified, chilling the hearts of all who behold him. Fahrenheit 46-39. In a different vein, Daniel Defoe, in A Journal of the Plague Year, paints a vivid tableau of the Great Plague of London in 1665. His narrative captures the macabre parade of plague doctors, their black cloaks billowing like shadows, their masks and gloves instruments of both salvation and fear. Defoe, with a mix of dread and admiration, recounts their charity was immense, their courage boundless. They ventured their lives to the extreme, and in doing so many met their end in a most harrowing fashion. Here the plague doctor is portrayed not only as a specter of mortality, but also as a heroic martyr encapsulating the dual nature of their existence. 40-57. From the somber frescoes of the Campo Santo to the blood-drenched pages penned by Poe, the image of the plague doctor has ensnared the darkest recesses of our collective imagination. Even as these figures receded into the annals of history, their legend, macabre and poignant, endures preserved in the timeless art of countless paintings, prints, and tales. How can we not be moved by the enduring grip these figures have on our psyche? 48-23. Oh, the haunting image. They conjure plague doctors with their eternal beaked masks and somber robes stand as chilling sentinels of our deepest dreads, suffering powerlessness, the specter of death itself. How they embody the very essence of human fear, a stark reminder of life's fragility and the terrors that once prowled our world. Yet as the 17th century gracefully surrendered to the 18th, the golden era of these spectral figures began to fade. The relentless dance of epidemics slowed its pace, not just due to the natural ebb and flow of disease, but also thanks to advancements in sanitation and the meticulous practices of quarantine. With fewer battles against the plague to wage, the need for these specialized warriors in black waned. Simultaneously, the foundational theories that had long supported the plague doctor's grim art were met with a rising tide of skepticism. The ancient Greek doctrine of humoral medicine, which once held that diseases stemmed from imbalances in the body's fluids, was being nudged aside by new empirical sciences. Enter Paracelsus, a Swiss physician whose fiery spirit and iconoclastic views shook the medical establishment to its core. He dismissed the orthodoxies of Galen, scoffing at the notions of bleeding and purging to balance the humors. Why treat with catch-all cures when each disease has its own cause, its own remedy? He would argue, his voice echoing through the annals of medical history. Though Paracelsus himself had long since passed into the realm of legends, before the plague doctor's peak, his revolutionary ideas sowed the seeds for a scientific renaissance in medicine. As traditional methods came under fire, so too did the once revered practices of these dark-clad healers. Theriac, the so-called wonder drug, a concoction of countless ingredients, found itself increasingly discredited. Oh, how the winds of change blow, ushering in an era where the old ways once held as gospel are now seen through the lens of doubt and scrutiny. Oh, the beleaguered bezoar stone. Once hailed as a vital weapon in the plague doctor's arsenal, it was mercilessly criticized and denounced. Critics vehemently argued that this dizzying concoction, with its bizarre mix from opium to the flesh of vipers, was not only ineffective against the plague, but potentially perilous. Imagine the very remedy meant to save lives turning against its victims. Other time-honored practices like bloodletting and induced vomiting, once staples of the plague doctor's toolkit, were also shunned as their lack of efficacy and inherent risks were unmasked. The very image of the plague doctor with that haunting beaked mask and the waxed leather coat became a symbol of an era steeped in superstition and ignorance. Yet as the sun set on these dark practices in Western Europe, the shadows lingered in the remote corners of Eastern Europe and Russia, where the specter of the plague still occasionally reared its head. Here in these far-flung lands, the plague doctor persisted, a relic of a bygone age, adapting yet clinging to tradition. In the 18th century, amidst the desolate steppes of Ukraine and Crimea, one such figure stood out, Danilo Samoich, a Russian physician whose name would echo through the annals of plague history. Samoich, a visionary, cast aside many of the archaic beliefs that shrouded the plague in mystery. He championed quarantine and sanitation, pioneering the early forms of inoculation by experimenting with dried pustule matter from those afflicted. Yet even as he pushed the boundaries of medical science, Samoich could not entirely escape the allure of the past. He donned a modified version of the iconic beaked mask and protective attire and held onto the ancient belief that the plague spread through miasmas, those noxious vapors believed to carry disease. Here was a man caught in the twilight of two worlds, a bridge between the old and the new, embodying the intricate dance between folklore and science. In Samoich, one sees not just a doctor, but a symbol of the evolving battle against one of humanity's darkest scourges. As dawn broke on a new era, men like Samoich would be the last to don the beaked mask and black robes, those once terrifying symbols of dread and awe among the sick. But even as the practice of the living faded into the shadows of history, the image of the plague doctor with its haunting visage and somber attire became a lasting emblem etched into the European psyche. It stood as a stark reminder of the dark times when pestilence reigned and death was an ever-present companion. In today's world, with its cutting-edge medical advancements and sophisticated public health infrastructure, it's difficult to grasp the reality of the plague doctor's existence. Their methods, primitive and seemingly barbaric to our modern sensibilities, were the very embodiment of the desperate fight against an unyielding adversary. These spectral figures in their time were the vanguard stepping into the inferno of contagion, confronting the terror of the disease head-on. Though their treatments were often futile and their understanding flawed, the courage and sacrifice of these plague doctors demand our respect and remembrance. Let us reflect on these men, from the learned physicians to the humble barber surgeons, from the charlatans seeking profit to the true heroes risking all. Theirs was a macabre and unappreciated profession, yet it has indelibly marked the pages of history. In the annals of medicine and the collective imagination, the plague doctor holds a ghostly, revered place. As we delve into the legacy of these enigmatic figures, one must ponder, how do we measure their impact? Was their role merely a grim curiosity, a strange and eerie footnote in medical history, or something far more profound? In those bygone days when the world was gripped by the terror of the Black Death, the valiant efforts of plague doctors emerged as a beacon of hope, however dim, amidst the overwhelming darkness of death and despair. 154-30. Their methods, viewed through the lens of contemporary science, were often futile, perhaps even harmful. Bloodletting, purging, and the use of questionable poultices did little to soothe the agony of their patients and might have accelerated their tragic ends. Yet to brush off these physicians as mere imposters or tricksters would be an injustice, wouldn't it? Given the rudimentary medical knowledge at their disposal, these doctors were doing what they could with the tools and theories of their era. We're to Factor 58. The miasma theory, which posited that diseases were born on the wings of foul airs, was the prevailing wisdom among the learned of the time. Bleeding and induced vomiting, though misguided, were deeply embedded in the centuries-old Galenic tradition that had long shaped Western medicine. Imagine the scale of the calamity they faced. The Black Death was a cataclysm of such magnitude that it decimated a third of Europe's population in a mere handful of years. 155-26. In the shadow of such an apocalyptic horror, the very fact that plague doctors managed to organize any form of resistance is nothing short of astonishing. The existence of the plague doctor as a specialized profession itself is a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of medieval society. 15550. Picture this in times when healthcare was a luxury for the few cities and towns were appointing dedicated medical experts to care for the plague-stricken. This was a profound step forward, wasn't it? In the bleakest moments, there was still a spark of hope, a fierce determination to combat the scourge of disease. We had to 56:12. Not all who donned the bird-like masks and long robes were saints, of course. As in any profession, there were those who sought personal gain over the welfare of their fellow humans. Yet even in this, there was a poignant reminder of humanity's complex nature, striving to find light in the darkest of times. In the shadowy realm of patient care, the independent nature of many plague doctors hired for fleeting contracts with scant supervision became a fertile ground for the unscrupulous. Imagine the desperation of a plague-ravaged town where these enigmatic figures cloaked in their ominous robes could exploit the vulnerable for a quick profit. There are tales whispered through the annals of history of these doctors, charging exorbitant fees or selling futile remedies to the afflicted. Some, in a chilling twist of fate, even plundered the homes of the dying and the dead. Yet amidst this darkness, let us not forget the glimmers of humanity. For every charlatan, there were undoubtedly countless more who toiled with a heart full of compassion, striving to offer solace in an era of despair. These dedicated souls, documented in the writings of their time, labored relentlessly not just against the plague, but against their own fears. The specter of infection loomed large, and the psychological burden of witnessing death on such a grotesque scale was unimaginable. Take, for instance, the visionary Nostradamus, who in his quest to curb the plague championed unorthodox strategies, cleanliness, fresh air, as if to whisper to the future, "Look beyond what is known." Although these measures could not single-handedly halt the relentless march of the plague, they whispered of a progressive spirit and eagerness to transcend the shackles of conventional thought. And so the legacy of the plague doctor persists a haunting silhouette in our collective memory, long after the Black Death receded into the shadows of history. These eerie figures with their beaked masks have not merely survived. They have thrived in the European consciousness, manifesting repeatedly in art, literature, and folklore. One of the most striking examples is found in the 15th century Danse Macabre, where these macabre yet captivating depictions often adorn the walls of churches, a poignant reminder of mortality and the eternal dance between life and death. In the eerie silence of graveyards, a skeletal figure, the very embodiment of death, leads a macabre dance with souls from every corner of life. Amidst this spectral parade, the haunting presence of a plague doctor with his distinctive beak-like mask serves as a chilling testament to the relentless shadow of disease and death that once loomed large. Can you not feel the chill of that bygone era? The terror of the unknown as the plague doctor strides through history. This figure of dread not only haunts the graves, but also the pages of literature, etching his mark in the minds of readers across the centuries. Giovanni Boccaccio in the 14th century set his masterpiece, the Decameron. Against the backdrop of a plague where the futile efforts of these doctors are woven into tales that blend tragedy with comedy. Fast forward through time and we find Daniel Defoe's A Journal of the Plague Year and Edgar Allan Poe's The Mask of the Red Death, each featuring the plague doctor as a harbinger of doom, his presence as potent as the pestilence itself. Yet it is as a visual icon that the plague doctor truly endures, a simple silhouette that speaks volumes of the Black Death and the medieval medical practices. From ancient woodcuts to modern Halloween costumes, this grim figure with his beaked mask evokes images of dread disease and the dance of death. It stands as a visual shorthand for the horrors of yesteryears. However, as the plague doctor became a staple in popular culture, the actual practice of plague medicine began to wane. By the 17th century, the frequency and severity of outbreaks had diminished across Europe. Concurrently, the methods of these doctors, from bloodletting to their theoretical underpinnings, were increasingly challenged. New medical luminaries like Paracelsus and Vesalius began to dismantle the ancient Greek humoral theories, questioning the very foundation of medieval medicine. Despite this, a few of these doctors persisted into the 18th and even 19th centuries, particularly in the remote regions of Eastern Europe, clinging to their arcane practices in the face of a changing world. As we turn the pages of history, the once familiar sight of plague doctors, those enigmatic sentinels in their beaked masks and long robes, has vanished from the cobblestone streets and hushed sick rooms of Europe's towns and cities. The era of the plague doctor has slipped into the annals of time. From our modern perspective, judging these mysterious figures is no easy task. On one hand, it's undeniable their methods were severely limited, often outright futile. For all their valiant efforts, they saved but a scant few souls, and in some tragic instances may have unwittingly hastened the spread of the very scourge they sought to quell. Viewed through this lens, they appear as mere purveyors of false promises, misguided meddlers with their fatal concoctions. Yet let us not overlook the heart that beats beneath the mask. There is an undeniable nobility, a stirring bravery in their resolve to face the unspeakable terror time and again. With nothing but the flimsiness of outdated theories and makeshift armor, in an age when many physicians fled from the pestilence like rats from a sinking ship, these peculiar souls chose to remain to stand firm against the grim reaper himself. That, dear reader, requires a courage that transcends mere folly. Perhaps in the tapestry of history, the legacy of the plague doctor is not so black and white. They were neither holy heroes nor villains, but a complex blend of both the selfless servants and the slightly sinister opportunists, the lifeguards and the grim reapers. In their existence, we find mirrored the full spectrum of human nature during times of dire crisis, our capacity for altruism and greed for bravery, and blunder for hope and despair. And as we ponder their long, strange history, what lessons might we glean for our own era as new specters of pandemics like COVID-19 haunt our global village? We find ourselves wrestling with similar dilemmas that plagued our medieval ancestors. In the relentless pursuit of remedies and containment for answers and blame, we find ourselves mirrored in the past. Our world, too, boasts its brave frontline medics alongside dubious quacks and prophets of doom. Yet above all, the plague doctor stands as a stark reminder of our inherent vulnerability, a beacon of our fragility against nature's caprices in the merciless march of disease. Oh, how the beaked mask, once a mere artifact of history, now reflects our deepest fears of death, chaos, and the unknown. But let us not forget, even amidst the darkest hours of the Black Death, humanity's spirit did not waver. People unearthed fleeting joys, connections, and resilience in a sea of suffering. As we don today's masks, facing our own unseen adversary, let us recall this invaluable lesson. The plague doctor teaches us not the cure for disease, but the art of surviving it with our humanity preserved. Thus, the plague doctor secures a place in the annals of medical lore, a figure both enigmatic and enthralling, whispering through the centuries. They embody the pinnacle of human endeavor. In its darkest depths, our eternal struggle with the specter of death and illness. Their beak mask and somber cloak, though alien to our modern sensibilities, carry a tale that resonates through our current pandemics and uncertainties. As night falls and we lay our heads to rest, let us honor those long-gone souls who gazed into the abyss of the Black Death, their eyes unwavering, fighting a seemingly futile battle against an unyielding foe. Their legacy, a testament to resilience, a reminder that in our fight against the unseen, we must hold fast to our humanity, for in that there lies our greatest strength and our most profound lesson. Imagine, if you will, the brave souls of yesteryear, these enigmatic figures known as plague doctors, armed with nothing more than their unyielding faith, the whispered wisdom of folklore, and a rather macabre taste in attire. Flawed and fallible, yet there was a dark nobility in their doomed quest. As we bid a tender goodnight to these spectral healers of old, we must acknowledge that their eerie tale does not end in the annals of history. No, for as long as humanity grapples with the age-old specter of pestilence, We will always need brave, albeit imperfect souls to rise up and challenge the darkness anew. And in this ongoing battle, might we not find a piece of the plague doctor spirit within us all, a somber yet essential reminder of our perpetual waltz with death and disease. The practice of lancing buboes was both common and grisly. A bubo, a swollen, painful lymph node often found in the groin neck or armpit during the Black Death, could swell to the size of an apple. According to the medieval humoral theory, these grotesque swellings were the body's desperate attempt to purge excess blood and bad humors. The solution, a razor slice to drain the foul contents. Some doctors even wielded specially crafted lancing tools and cupping glasses. The procedure was nothing short of barbaric, painful, messy, and fraught with the risk of infection. Patients would scream in torment as the plague doctor carved into their inflamed flesh. We understand now that this did little good. Buboes were merely symptoms of the bacterial infection, not its cause. Lancing them offered no true relief and tragically might have spread the contagion further. To the plague doctor, however, steeped in miasma theory and the teachings of Galen, the act of purging these vile humors from the buboes seemed a logical if desperate response to a disease believed to stem from internal imbalances and decay. After draining a bubo, the doctor might, to treat the gaping wounds of the afflicted physicians, would delve into their apothecary's trove, selecting from a curious assortment of salves and poultices. Imagine the scene: a blend of herbs, minerals, even slices of bread, or in more desperate measures, animal dung, pressed into the flesh in hopes of healing. 207-06. Among these remedies, a renowned concoction known as theriac captured the imagination and the taste buds, crafted from an eclectic mix that ranged from viper flesh to the soothing touch of opium, the sweetness of honey, to the aromatic zest of cinnamon. This elixir was touted as a universal panacea, a cure for ailments as diverse as indigestion to the dread plague itself. However, one might ponder, did it truly heal, or did it merely cast a drowsy veil over the sufferer's senses? When the telltale buboes failed to erupt, the doctors in their grim determination would take to the knife, slicing into the flesh to coax forth these signs of disease, creating an artificial bubo in a macabre act of medical intervention. 207-35. Picture the scene: the plague doctor, perhaps with a flicker of hope in his eyes, drawing out what he believed to be the bad blood near an infection site like the armpit, until the patient, drained and nearly lifeless, lay before him. For those too weak to withstand further bloodletting, the doctor might turn to the arcane, applying live chickens or pigeons, to the buboes, anointing the skin with snake oil, brewing potions from ground unicorn horns and powdered gems, all while the acrid smoke from their ever-burning beak mask filled the air. 208-12. There was little room for comfort or empathy in these encounters. Plague doctors were warned against idle conversation lest they inhale the deadly miasmas. At best, they might murmur a prayer or inscribe talismanic symbols. For many, the looming figure of the plague doctor was the embodiment of an inevitable defeat, the final harbinger before the disease claimed its victim. 208-39. Consider, if you will, the young Nostradamus, the renowned French astrologer, who in his early days as a plague doctor traversed the provinces in the 1520s, tending to the suffering with a bravery that belied his years. How many souls did he comfort? How many did he witness in their final moments as he navigated through the shadow of death himself? 209-05. One wonders, what sights did he behold? What stories could he tell? Imagine the horrors those eyes witnessed peering out from behind the unsettling beak of the mask. Did the great prophet Nostradamus foresee his own fate, a life etched into fame and legend? Or in those dark, foreboding times, did the world appear as a grotesque carnival of suffering with death, as the maestro conducting a symphony of mockery? What we know for certain is that Nostradamus emerged from this ordeal not just as a seer, but as a skilled, selfless physician, his name synonymous with healing and hope. In the aftermath, he penned a handbook, Te de Fadmo, a testament to his hard-earned knowledge and remedies. His experiences did more than just scar him. They molded his perception of destiny in the supernatural. He grappled with the notion that unseen forces, whether the celestial dance of stars or the insidious spread of pestilence, were the true puppeteers of human fate. For the plague doctor, existence was a surreal dance between the realms of the living and the dead, the tangible and the ethereal. They walked the shadowy fringes of reality, a solitary figure in a battle that was as much metaphysical as it was medical, enveloped in an atmosphere thick with sickness and despair. Did some seek solace in mysticism, alchemy, or the dark arts out of sheer desperation? Or perhaps as a grim comfort in a world undone by plague? Such was the peculiar mental and spiritual terrain of the medieval plague doctor, a minister at the confluence of natural science and dark superstition, drenched in disease and death, confronting the very boundaries of human comprehension. Is it any surprise that many succumb to fatalism, madness, or magical thinking? After all, the plague seemed to defy all laws of nature, emerging from the shadows to obliterate both royalty and commoner alike, only to retreat into obscurity once more. Can we not then forgive these doctors for their bloodletting, their fumigations, their talismans, and their potions? They waged a relentless war with the only tools their era provided: ancient wisdom, folk traditions, the eerie mask of a doctor, and the indomitable spirit of human perseverance. Though they faced, as the shadows lengthened, these enigmatic figures draped in their eerie regalia continued to emerge from their sanctuaries of superstition and ritual. Day after day, they confronted the specter of death with a bravery that was both unsettling and oddly heroic. Imagine them, an army of hypocrites clashing with the apocalyptic horsemen, their bizarre costumes a stark reflection of humanity's timeless battle against the abyss. Their existence was a macabre dance, a final waltz with oblivion, each step taken with the knowledge that the end was nigh yet. They danced on. The era of the plague doctor may have faded into the annals of history, but their spirit lingers, a poignant reminder of the healer's eternal struggle and the delicate nature of life itself. We must honor this peculiar phantom not as a savior or a charlatan, but as the flawed embodiment of all who dare to challenge death itself. They stood at the very edge of the abyss, the Black Death looming large, and they fought with the tools and knowledge they possessed. Their silhouette remains a haunting, tragic, yet darkly fascinating echo from a bygone century, still whispering at the fringes of our own. Now let us delve into the heart of their mission, into the solemn duty of treatment. In an era devoid of germ theory or the light of modern medical science, their battle against pestilence was a desperate, shadowy endeavor. The plague doctor, adhering to the time-honored Greek humoral theory, navigated this darkness with the only map he had. This ancient wisdom, inherited from the likes of Hippocrates and Galen, dictated that the human body was a delicate balance of four cardinal fluids: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Health was this equilibrium, and illness was nothing but the disruption of this harmony. Thus, the treatments prescribed by these doctors, though they might seem outlandish or even horrific to our contemporary sensibilities, were earnest attempts to restore this delicate balance. In their quest to combat disease, they wielded their archaic knowledge with a fervor that was both admirable and in its own way deeply human. In their valiant yet desperate quest to restore the delicate balance of health, the plague doctor wielded a grim arsenal, foremost among which was the age-old practice of bloodletting. From time immemorial, this method was believed to purge the body of corrupt or excessive humors, draining away the very essence of illness. Imagine, if you will, the chilling scene. The plague doctor with a steady hand might open a vein in the arm, or perhaps summon leeches to perform their macabre task of drawing out the tainted blood. More daringly, in an effort to combat the buboes that so cruelly afflicted the sick, they would target the neck, where the swellings were most pronounced. How unbearable must have been the pain in an era devoid of anesthesia, as patients endured these bloody ministrations. Yet the horrors did not end there. Another ghastly procedure was the lancing of these buboes. With precision and perhaps a touch of grim necessity, the doctor would pierce the grotesque swellings, draining what was thought to be the concentrated essence of putrefaction. The wounds, gaping and raw, were then subjected to the searing touch of a red-hot iron or anointed with an ointment made from honey, garlic, and onion. For those already in the throes of disease, could the cure possibly be as torturous as the affliction itself? In tandem with these surgical nightmares, the plague doctor's bag brimmed with an array of potions, tonics, and unguents. Their goal was a fierce purging of the body, evoking sweat, vomiting, or diarrhea to expel the noxious humors by any means necessary. Among these thick, a complex concoction boasting dozens of ingredients like viper flesh, opium, and myrrh was revered as a universal antidote to poison and pestilence. Apothecaries thrived on crafting these questionable remedies, while gentler palliatives like rosewater violets and comfrey root offered but a whisper of relief against the relentless advance of the plague. Perhaps acknowledging the limits of their science, many a plague doctor turned to more ethereal methods, seeking solace in the aromatic embrace of burning rosemary. In the desperate hope of warding off the deadly miasma, the air was filled with the sweet, heavy scent of burning frankincense. Holy relics and blessed amulets imbued with divine power were tenderly placed upon the feverish bodies of the afflicted, beseeching celestial intervention. In the dim, flickering glow of candlelight, the sick and dying were enveloped in incantations and ritualistic gestures, a fusion of folk magic and religious rites, as if these could somehow bridge the chasm between life and death. Confronted with the Black Death, a terror beyond the wildest nightmares of humanity, the plague doctor summoned every conceivable weapon in his arsenal. From the forefront of medieval medical knowledge to the shadowy depths of superstition, he wielded his tools with a desperate fervor. Yet in that dim light where science, religion, and the occult mingled indistinguishably, his efforts often fell short. The humoral treatments, with all their pomp and circumstance, offered scant more than fleeting illusions of hope. Beneath the ominous gaze of his beak-like mask, the plague doctor watched powerless as the buboes burst, fevers consumed, and souls slipped into the eternal embrace of death. Is it any surprise, then, that he became a figure of loathing and dread? To those writhing in agony, he was a harbinger of further torment, a macabre figure synonymous with bloodletting and the lancing of boils. To the fortunate few still untouched by the plague, he was a chilling omen, a spectral reminder that no one was safe from the relentless pestilence. In a world torn asunder by unimaginable calamity, the plague doctor embodied both the last flicker of hope and the darkest manifestation of fear. As he departed from the humble cottage, his departure marked by the mournful weeping of the bereaved and the guttural moans of the sick, one could not help but ponder, how many more would he tend to under the cloak of night, only to see them consumed by the flames at dawn? How long before? Did the pestilence extinguish itself, or consume all in its unquenchable thirst? These were the haunting questions that lingered unanswered in an era where once solid truths had crumbled to dust. 1754. The plague doctor, with no choice but to press on, carried out his somber duty, clinging to the faint hope that his tireless efforts might spare a handful of souls in this bleak, unfathomable epoch. This was perhaps the utmost a mere mortal could aspire to achieve. To step into the shoes of a plague doctor in a medieval city was to embrace a life draped in perpetual twilight, where every shadow whispered of despair. 1822. Each dawn ushered in a relentless parade of the afflicted, the perishing, and the perished. From the first light until the last, and often through the eerie stillness of the night, the doctor made his grave rounds. His existence was marked by unending labor and the ever-present threat of death. While his eerie attire offered a modicum of protection, each step into a plague-ridden home, each touch upon a body ravaged by disease was a dance with danger. 1855. The plague doctor lived with the constant dread that the very air, thick with miasmas, could carry the scourge directly into his own being. His day commenced with a visit to the town's alderman or health committee, where he would collect his list of patients and his stipend, a sum that acknowledged the perilous nature of his calling. After 1920, clad in his foreboding garb, he ventured into the maze of narrow, twisting streets. As he moved, the city's few survivors recoiled, their eyes averted or hands making the sign of the cross. To them, the doctor's towering figure was a grim omen, a harbinger of sorrow and demise. Even the children in their innocence would scatter at the sight of his bird-like mask, his dark cloak billowing in the foul air. As he approached each afflicted dwelling, the plague doctor would pause, steeling himself against the horrors that awaited him within. He'd carefully assess the suffering, examine the grotesque swellings, and administer whatever paltry remedies he had. If in the night a patient had succumbed to the relentless grip of death, he would meticulously inspect the ravaged remains, seeking any clues to illuminate the dark mysteries of the disease's insidious progression. Beyond a mere physician, the plague doctor stood as a sentinel of public order in a city besieged by chaos. He commanded the grim sealing of infected houses, enforcing the dreaded quarantine. He oversaw the somber disposal of the dead, ensuring their belongings, now carriers of contagion, were incinerated. His duty was a bulwark against the disintegration of civilized life itself. As night cloaked the city, the doctor would retreat to the health committee to deliver his somber report. Here the names of the departed were solemnly recorded, the relentless march of the pestilence mapped out with a heavy heart. Then into the night once more he'd venture to check on those teetering on the brink of life, or respond to another heart-wrenching cry of despair. The emotional and psychological toll of such a life cannot be overstated. To be enveloped by incessant suffering, to daily don the mantle of death's harbinger, extracted a dire price. In the journals and letters that have survived from these bleak times, we find glimpses of plague doctors wrestling with the enormity of their task. Some sought refuge in the fleeting oblivion of drink, others in the fervent solace of prayer. Gallows humor, that ancient refuge for those in imminent peril, became their common coping mechanism. Plague doctors became notorious for their macabre jests and dark witticisms. Yet amidst this bleakness, a rare few discovered a resolute purpose in the crucible of their ordeal. In the midst of the crisis, as the clock marked 2 to 2150, they perceived their grim duties fraught with futility and horror as a sacred mission. Tending to the sick, they discovered a profound purpose, a divine calling. Walking through the darkest valleys, shadowed by death itself, they dedicated themselves to the service of humanity. Yet for many, the role of a plague doctor was a test of endurance beyond the limits of human capacity. Within mere months, countless succumbed to the exhaustion, despair, or the very plague they battled. They became part of the countless dead, their iconic beaked masks and somber cloaks offering no shield against the relentless scourge. And still, as long as the city's silver jingled into trembling hands, there were always those ready to embrace the macabre task. In an era where societal ties were stretched thin, where hope was a flickering candle in a storm of suffering plague, doctors remained. Through the bleakest chapters of the medieval world, these enigmatic figures persisted, embodying the roles of physician, priest, and grim reaper, unwavering before the unspeakable. As the sun dipped below the horizon over the ancient city, a spectral figure stepped forth from the encroaching darkness. Dressed in black oilcloth, topped with a wide-brimmed hat and a mask resembling a bird's beak, the plague doctor cast a haunting silhouette against the dimming sky. To the terrified townsfolk barricaded within their homes, whispering prayers to evade the pestilence, this figure was both a beacon of salvation and the embodiment of their deepest dread. For the plague doctor, the night stretched long, filled with the daunting task of confronting the most lethal disease known to humanity. Their existence was a tapestry of terror, toil, and sorrow, equipped with nothing more than the remnants of ancient medical knowledge. Oh, the resilience of the human spirit in the face of such adversity. How does one find the strength to continue when surrounded by death and decay? These were the silent questions that echoed in the hearts of those who, against all odds, chose to stand firm in the storm of the plague. Driven by a blend of theories, superstitious beliefs, and a somber sense of duty, these spectral figures bravely plunged into the darkest heart of the Black Death. They were there to tend to the afflicted and to witness the unimaginable suffering firsthand. 2404. It was a role that required not just courage, but a certain desperation for many who donned the garb of the plague doctor were untried physicians, failed scholars, or even common swindlers eager to capitalize on the chaos. Yet for the genuine healers who answered the dire call, like the revered French physician Charles Delorme, it was nothing short of a sacred mission. In the year 1619, as the scourge of the bubonic plague swept through Paris, Delorme crafted an ensemble designed to shield its wearer from the deadly miasmas thought to carry the disease. His creation included a long leather coat treated with wax to repel the noxious fluids that might carry infection. The distinctive beak-shaped mask was filled with straw, aromatic herbs, and spices, acting as a primitive filter against the polluted air. Chapter 24 and 31. Completing this formidable attire were leather breeches, gloves, boots, and a wide-brimmed hat, marking the bearer as a guardian against the plague. Clad in this foreboding uniform, the plague doctor would venture forth to inspect the sick, offering what scant remedies the time could muster. Guided by the ancient Greek concept of bodily humors, these doctors aimed to restore balance to blood phlegm and bile through harsh, often horrific methods. Tattoo 24 and 54. Bloodletting, the lancing of buboes, forced purges, and the application of foul-smelling poultices were common practices. Yet the plague doctor's arsenal was not limited to the physical. They often turned to the mystical, employing magical amulets, incantations, and administering theriac, a concoction containing viper flesh and opium. The sheer barbarity and apparent futility of these treatments are almost inconceivable to the contemporary observer. 225 and 22. Picture this you, a medieval plague sufferer lying on a filthy pallet, your body ravaged by fever pain, pulsing from the swollen buboes in your armpits and groin. The room is filled with the stench of death, and hope seems but a distant memory. What must it have been like to see that masked figure approach a beacon of both fear and salvation in those desperate dark times? In the flickering shadows, a plague doctor materializes, his silhouette casting a foreboding omen over your writhing form. His mask, fashioned like the cruel beak of a bird of prey, seems poised to snatch your very spirit from your body. With a chilling detachment, he makes an incision into your swollen buboes, releasing a torrent of dark, malevolent pus. 17. The agony, sharp as a blade, is quickly outmatched by the revolting stench of decay. As your essence seeps away, he forces down your throat a concoction so foul it seems brewed in the depths of despair, or all while uttering arcane chants. Your final thought as you're enveloped by darkness is a chilling realization you've been dragged into the very bowels of hell. For the plague doctor, these harrowing visions were not mere nightmares, but daily encounters. 2042, the annals and records that endure from those dark times sketch a bleak canvas of their existence. Consider Nostradamus, the renowned French seer who once tread the path of a plague doctor in the 1520s. He wandered through France and Italy, his mission to heal the afflicted and unravel the mysteries of the plague. His writings depict towns left in ruins with bodies stacked like firewood in the streets, and an omnipresent shroud of death hanging like a pall over all. I do not think that in the whole world there remained a single man who had not tasted the sadness and terror of the plague, he lamented. Yet how did other plague doctors face this relentless horror? 227. 12. Many turned to earthly distractions. Chronicles from the time speak of their penchant for wine gambling and indulgence in the carnal. The notorious engraving of Dr. Schnabel of Rome captures this escape. There he sits mask askew in a tavern, regaling patrons with tales as dark as the spirits they drink. 2741. One might judge their conduct yet, for those who daily confronted the abyss of human agony, such indulgences were perhaps the only tethers to sanity. As the Black Death continued its grim harvest across Europe, the sight of the plague doctor with his haunting visage became a chillingly familiar specter. 228 or 07. In the macabre dance of art and literature, the plague doctor emerged not merely as a figure, but as a haunting emblem of the era's relentless mortality and pervasive fear. This grim specter, often seen cavorting with the living in the ghastly dance of death, known as the danse macabre, was a frequent guest in the celebrations of the doomed. From manuscript illustrations to woodcuts and the poignant memento mori engravings, he was depicted as death's own emissary, guiding the sick with a skeletal hand towards their grim fate. 228-38. Long after the plague's virulence waned, this fascination with morbidity lingered. The plague doctor evolved into a staple of Gothic literature, lurking in the shadows of works by Poe, Shelley, and Dickens, a chilling reminder of civilization's dark underbelly. Today, his image still stands as the quintessential symbol of the Black Death, a stark testament to the unimaginable horrors endured by our forebears. 229-11. Yet for those who donned the mantle of the plague doctor, there was scant glory to be claimed. Clad in their eerie attire, they might have seemed like arcane saviors, but in truth, they were woefully unprepared to battle a scourge that felled empires. Their remedies, though well-intentioned, often exacerbated the agony of their charges. 229-37. Tragically, many of these doctors succumbed to the very plague they fought against, their waxed coats and beaked masks offering little more than a facade of protection. How can one not admire these medieval knights of darkness in an age where even the mightiest leaders fled from the plague's advance? These doctors bravely put on their beaked masks and stepped forward into the abyss. 230. 6. Armed with nothing but folk remedies, blind faith, and an unyielding sense of duty, they faced the living nightmare of their time. Their efforts, though often futile, remind us of the profound courage it takes to confront the unknown with nothing but the heart's resolve. In the shadow of death, they toiled, their purpose imbued with a nobility that even the cruelest pestilence could not snuff out. As the era of the plague doctor waned, giving way to the enlightenment of reason and the dawn of modern medicine, his eerie silhouette did not vanish into oblivion, but lingered in the realm of art and imagination. The beaked mask and somber cloak became emblems of a macabre intrigue, a chilling testament to the trials our ancestors endured during the darkest hours of plague. Today we reflect on the medieval plague doctor not merely as a figure of dread or sacrifice, but as a symbol of the era's gloom and the unyielding human spirit. In our contemporary world, as new pandemics emerge and the threat of global contagion grows ever more palpable, the teachings of the plague doctor resonate with startling clarity. We too face an adversary that is both invisible and relentless, one that challenges the very fabric of our existence. We are forced to confront the boundaries of our understanding, the inadequacies of our systems, and the grim certainty of our mortality. Like those valiant doctors of yore, we must find the fortitude to face the unimaginable, to gaze into the abyss with steadfast determination. Perhaps in this lies the true legacy of the plague doctor, not in the stark imagery or the harsh treatments, but in the undying spirit of empathy and sacrifice amidst overwhelming darkness. As we don our masks and protective gear, stepping into a world fraught with uncertainty, let us heed the example set by these shadowy heroes of history. In their haunting eyes, might we not see a reflection of ourselves, fragile, yes, and fearful, but always unbroken, standing resolute against the encroaching shadows. As we close our eyes in slumber, let us not conjure the visage of the grim plague doctor, but instead embrace the silent valor he exemplified during the darkest epochs of human suffering. For within that courage we might discover the fortitude to confront our own shadows and greet the dawn with renewed hope. When we delve into the legacy of the medieval plague doctor, we are compelled to recognize their dual nature, their methods constrained by the rudimentary medical knowledge of their era, and their unparalleled bravery in facing one of history's most lethal scourges. These spectral figures, cloaked in their macabre beak-shaped masks and flowing black robes, ventured without hesitation into the heart of contagion, into homes and streets choked with the stench of death. Equipped with nothing more than a patchwork of ancient Greek medical doctrines, folklore steeped in superstition, and a scant array of primitive tools, they stood against the Black Death with unwavering resolve. Their efforts, though often futile, did sometimes bear fruit. They recommended isolation and rudimentary hygiene, which undoubtedly saved some lives. Yet their treatments, bloodletting, forced vomiting, and administering noxious concoctions, likely hastened the end for many a beleaguered soul. Nevertheless, in a time cloaked in fear and despair, the appearance of the plague doctor was a beacon of faint hope for the afflicted. These figures, haunting in their presence, embodied the paradox of human response to crisis. They waded into the abyss, offering solace to the afflicted, risking their lives in a testament to human compassion. In an age where many doctors turned away, these brave souls chose to turn towards the suffering, a poignant reminder of what it means to be human in the face of overwhelming adversity. Amidst the harrowing escape of terror-stricken souls, the selfless service rendered by some in the face of such dread was undoubtedly heroic. Yet, much like the controversial figures of history, those who robbed graves, the resurrection men, and the snake oil salesmen hawking their wares, plague doctors too, could exploit the desperate with ruthless abandon. Some made extravagant promises, sold exorbitant cures, or engaged in ghastly experiments on the dying, and all under the shadow of minimal oversight. This blend of quackery and despair unveils the darker facets of our nature, where fear breeds both unscrupulous opportunism and a desperate clinging to magical solutions. The legacy of the plague doctor therefore stands as a poignant reflection of human fragility and resilience during pandemics. These figures were often a motley crew comprising educated physicians, eager apprentices, wandering charlatans, and ordinary folk thrust into this grim role by necessity. They donned the mask of authority, yet navigated through the murky, miasmic fog of medical disaster with little more than hope and a prayer. Yet for those on the brink of despair, the sight of these foreboding figures, their beaked masks and billowing black cloaks announcing their arrival, offered a sliver of dignity and hope. They embodied humanity's unyielding resolve that even against insurmountable odds, in the midst of excruciating suffering and widespread death, the call to heal and care remains paramount. Reflecting on the spectral presence of the plague doctor, an emblem of the Black Death, what profound insights might we glean about our own condition? Their tale speaks to our timeless battle against the specters of epidemic disease and death. From the horrors of the bubonic plague through smallpox to the trials of COVID-19, humanity has always turned to medicine, faith, and ritual in our quest for survival and meaning. Amidst the shadows cast by superstition, we find ourselves grappling with our primal fears of contagion and death. The haunting figure of the plague doctor, with its eerie silhouette, serves as a stark reminder of our own fragility, a mere whisper in the vast, indifferent expanse of the universe. How quickly our amassed knowledge and sophistication can crumble, brought low by the relentless advance of nature's most minuscule adversaries. Yet, like the medieval streets that once bore witness to unspeakable suffering, life's rhythms persist undeterred by the specter of pandemics. Civilizations have crumbled, pandemics have ravaged, but humanity, resilient and defiant, continues to greet the dawn, to delve into our textbooks and laboratories to reconstruct our shattered cities. As we face new threats that echo ancient fears, might we not look past the plague doctor's antiquated methods and grim failures? 37:27. For even in the darkest, most uncertain nights, these enigmatic figures stood steadfast. They kindled a light in the engulfing darkness present for the thankless, seemingly Sisyphean task. With nothing but duty and a faint whisper of hope, who are the modern-day equivalents of these historical figures? Who are the unsung heroes casting themselves between the vulnerable and the abyss? What will future generations say of our own doctors on the front lines of pandemics? Are they not the gallant warriors nightly battling against the invisible legions of nature? Will they be celebrated for their selfless dedication? Their sacrifices, or will they be critiqued for their perceived inadequacies and oversights? Perhaps some truths remain timeless. 238. 16. In times of profound crisis, when panic, grief, and chaos hold sway, we search for symbols to embody our deepest aspirations and anxieties. And what could be more compellingly dark than the plague doctor, this embodiment of the grim reaper moving through our feverish dreams and packed sick rooms, where medicine and mortality dance a macabre ballet. 238:40. They are the ferrymen on the river Styx, the Virgil guiding through the inferno, ushering souls into the underworld. Yet we must not forget the humanity. Behind the beaked mask, a hand trembles, a weary step echoes, and the everyday courage of simply being present resonates deeply. Let us honor these medieval physicians, even as we critically analyze their imperfections. May they serve as a poignant reminder of our shared fragility and fortitude, our ceaseless battle to ignite hope amidst our darkest hours. The next time you encounter that haunting figure in the yellowed pages of an ancient manuscript, in the somber halls of a museum, or within the endless digital corridors of a midnight YouTube session, pause for a moment of reflection. You are not just looking at history, you are peering into a mirror, reflecting the human condition, an eternal scene of suffering and salvation, pride and humility, despair intertwined with determination. As we draw this chapter to a close, this tale of the plague doctor, both ancient and vibrantly relevant, let us welcome the quiet of the night. Let the medieval shadows stretch long, and the bustling streets and markets of the mind gradually empty and hush. Rest now and dream of a brighter future where wisdom and kindness might prevail over disease and dread. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time. If you have enjoyed this exploration, please consider liking, commenting, sharing, or subscribing to our channel. Good night, dear viewers, and may your dreams be sweet, filled with the hope of a better tomorrow. Until we meet again, be well.